The year is 1810. Outside the thick, sand-hewn limestone walls of a farmhouse tucked deep within the Dordogne Valley, the autumn wind is a restless ghost. It prowls through the skeletal branches of the walnut groves, whistling a low, mournful tune against the heavy oak shutters. But inside, time does not move in minutes or hours. It moves in the steady, hypnotic pulse of the hearth. The frantic pace of the world, the distant echoes of Napoleonic drums and the shifting borders of empires stops at the threshold of this kitchen. Here, the air is thick with the scent of curing hams hanging from blackened rafters, the sweet, heavy perfume of woodsmoke, and the earthy aroma of chestnuts roasting deep within the white embers. You are sitting in a hand-carved ladder-back chair, tucked into the warm, scavenous embrace of the cantu, the great stone hearth that serves as the soul of the home. Your hands, calloused by the labour of the harvest but softened by the fire's glow, reach into a woven willow basket. You pull out a single walnut, sits golden-brown shell etched with a complex map of ridges and valleys. You place it upon a flat stone, worn smooth by generations of hands doing this exact same task. Then, the sound begins. A sharp, clean crack. It is an honest sound, the sound of a promise kept by the earth. As the shell gives way, a faint, nutty fragrance is released, mingling with the dry heat of the room. The shell fragments drop into a wooden bucket at your feet with a hollow, resonant thud. This is not merely a chore, it is a rhythmic prayer of gratitude. It is the quiet symphony of a life lived in perfect harmony with the seasons. Every crack is a heartbeat. Every falling shell is a moment of letting go. The stone walls, 4 feet thick, soak up the heat of the day's cooking, the vegetable bouillon, the crusty sourdough bread, and breathe it back out. A slow radiation of comfort against your spine. You reach for another nut, feeling the weight of the bounty gathered from trees planted by ancestors long gone. As the wind moans in the chimney, the fire answers with a cheerful pop of sap, casting dancing shadows across the copper pans that hang like miniature suns on the wall. You are safe. You are warm. The world is reduced to this circle of light and the steady, soothing cadence of the harvest. Close your eyes and listen. Let the smell of the roasting chestnuts wrap around you like a heavy wool blanket. The world of 1810 is waiting to pull you into its slow, samber-coloured depths. The basket is full.
The night is long.
And there is no place else you need to be. You feel the continuity of the land, the reliability of the soil, a deep, marrow-deep peace that settles into your bones. The rhythm of the walnut shells falling is the only clock you need. It is a steady, grounding beat that tells you that for tonight, all is well in the valley. The shadows flicker, the embers breathe. The journey into the stillness of the farmhouse kitchen begins now. Can you feel the heat of the stone? Can you hear the hollow thud in the bucket? This is the sanctuary you have been looking for, a space where the air is still and the heart is quiet. As we sit here together in the flickering golden light, the rest of the world fades into a grey mist, leaving only the warmth of the wood fire and the simple, sacred task at hand. Every walnut is a small treasure, a year of sunshine and rain locked inside a wooden vault, and you are the one invited to unlock it. The floorboards beneath your boots are cool and solid. The ceiling beams are dark with the smoke of 100 winters, and the silence is not empty. It is full of the presence of home. Lean back, breathe. The harvest is done. The stores are full, and the night belongs to the hearth. This is the art of being still. This is the magic of the Dordogne in the cooling turn of the year. The fire shifts, a heavy log of seasoned oak settling deeper into the bed of glowing coals, sending a cascade of brilliant orange sparks dancing up the soot-stained throat of the chimney. You watch them go, tiny fleeting stars that vanish into the darkness of the flue. The warmth on your face is intense, a physical weight that coaxes the tension from your shoulders, while the back of the room remains in a soft, velvety gloom. To your left, the tall long-case clock, crafted from local cherry wood, ticks with a slow mechanical gravity. It doesn't rush in the Dordogne of 1810. Time is measured by the growth of the wheat and the ripening of the grapes, not by the frantic seconds of a city. You reach into the basket again, your fingers brushing against the cool, rough surfaces of the nuts. Each one is slightly different in shape, a unique product of the tree it fell from. You select one that is particularly heavy, feeling the life force still tucked inside. You place it on the cracking stone. The thud of the previous shells in the bucket creates a base layer of sound, a low-frequency vibration that seems to hum through the flagstone floor. You apply pressure. The resistance of the shell is firm, a stubborn guardian of the fruit within, until snap it surrenders. The sound echoes slightly against the high-beamed ceiling. You carefully extract the nut meat, two perfect halves that look like tiny, intricate brains. You set them into a ceramic bowl on the small table beside you, their pale, creamy color contrasting with the dark glaze of the pottery. These walnuts will be pressed for oil, a liquid gold that will flavor the winter's salads and saute the mountain mushrooms, or perhaps they will be ground into flour for a dense, dark cake. The thought of the future uses brings a quiet satisfaction, but your focus remains here, in the present moment of the task. The smell of the roasting chestnuts is getting stronger now, a sweet, starchy aroma that signals they are nearly done. You take a long, deep breath, tasting the wood smoke and the ancient dust of the farmhouse. This building has stood for 200 years already, and it feels as though it will stand for 1,000 more. It is an anchor in a changing world. The wind outside tries the latch of the heavy door, a rhythmic rattling that only serves to make the interior feel more secure. You are enveloped in a cocoon of sensory richness. The texture of the rough shell, the smoothness of the cracking stone, the flickering orange light reflected in the glassware on the hutch. You find yourself matching your breathing to the rhythm of the shells. Inhale, reach, exhale, crack, inhale, drop. It is a meditation without words. The shadows on the wall grow and shrink as the flames lick at the air, creating a silent puppet show of giants and monsters that hold no terror here. Here, the shadows are friends, the familiar inhabitants of a room that has seen births, deaths, and the quiet passing of countless autumn nights. You feel a sense of profound belonging. You are a link in a chain, a keeper of the flame, a participant in the eternal cycle of the harvest. The bucket is slowly filling, the level of shells rising toward the rim, marking the progress of the evening in a way that feels meaningful and real. There is no waste here. The shells themselves will eventually find their way back to the fire, or perhaps into the garden paths to crunch underfoot. Everything has a purpose, everything has its place. As the heat of the hearth begins to seep into your very marrow, you feel a gentle drowsiness tugging at the corners of your mind, a soft invitation to let go of any lingering worries. The world outside the Dordogne is vast and loud, but here, in the heart of the farmhouse, the only thing that matters is the next walnut, the next spark, and the steady, comforting thud of the harvest. As the pile of walnut meat grows in the ceramic bowl, you pause for a moment, resting your hands on your knees. The heat from the fireplace is so consistent now it feels like a physical presence, a warm hand pressed against your chest. You look at the crémaillère, the heavy iron crane swinging over the fire, and the large cauldron that hangs from it. It's empty now, but the lingering scent of the evening's leek and potato soup still hangs in the air, a ghost of a meal that provided the energy for tonight's work. This kitchen is a place of alchemy, where the raw products of the forest and field are transformed into the sustenance of life. You reach for a small iron poker and gently nudge the chestnuts nestled in the periphery of the embers. They hiss and steam, their dark skins split to reveal the golden, mealy flesh inside. The aroma is intoxicating, sweet, nutty, and charred. You pull one out, letting it roll onto the hearthstone to cool for a moment before you dare to touch it. This small ritual, the shelling of walnuts and the roasting of chestnuts, is a bridge between the wildness of nature and the comfort of the home. It is how the people of the Dordogne have survived and thrived for centuries. Before we continue deeper into the night, if you're finding peace in this journey back to 1810, please consider subscribing to our channel and hitting the notification bell so you never miss a moment of our historical wanderings. Your support helps us keep the fires burning in the hearths of history. Now, you pick up the cooled chestnut. Its skin is charred and papery, peeling away easily to reveal the steaming heart. You take a small bite. It is hot, sweet, and comforting, the very taste of autumn. It fuels you for the next basket of walnuts. You look around the room, noticing the way the light catches the dried herbs hanging from the joists. Rosemary, thyme, and lavender, their scents dormant but present. On the heavy oak table, a half-filled glass of dark red wine sits, its surface perfectly still, reflecting the fire like a dark ruby. The simplicity of these objects, the wood, the stone, the glass, the nut, remains unchanged by the passing of centuries. In 1810, these are the luxuries of the soul. There is a deep, quiet power in doing one thing at a time and doing it with full attention. The world of the future will be full of noise and divided focus, but you are here in the past where the only task is the one in your hands. You pick up the next walnut. It's a bit smaller than the others, but when you crack it, the meat is bright and perfect. Thud. The shell hits the bottom of the bucket. You're becoming a master of the rhythm. The sound is no longer a disruption of the silence. It has become the silence itself. You feel the weight of your own body in the chair, the way the floor supports your feet, the way the air moves softly as the fire breathes. The wind outside has died down to a whisper, as if even the weather is respecting the stillness of this kitchen. The shadows on the walls seem to lean in, listening to the story of the harvest. You feel a sense of profound gratitude for the walls that shelter you, the fire that warms you, and the simple nuts that provide for you. This is the essence of the farmhouse, a place of protection, provision, and peace. As you continue your work, the rhythm becomes even more fluid, a dance of hands and stone and shell that requires no thought, only presence. You are drifting into a state of pure being, where the only thing that exists is the glow of the embers and the steady grounding thud of the falling shells. The basket seems bottomless, a reservoir of summer's labor that refuses to diminish, and yet you find no frustration in this. Instead, there is a profound sense of security in the abundance. Each walnut represents a moment of the year gone by. The pale green catkins of spring, the heavy leafy shade of July, and the crisp morning air of the harvest when the hulls turned black and split open on the dew-damp grass. You pick up a nut that is particularly gnarled, its surface a labyrinth of deep grooves. As you turn it over in your palm, the firelight catches the fine dust of the hearth, suspended in the air like microscopic gold leaf. The thud in the bucket is becoming deeper, more muffled now, as the discarded shells pile higher and higher, creating a cushioned landing for those that follow. You think of the oil mill down by the stream, where the massive stone wheels will eventually crush these kernels, the air there thick with the heavy, intoxicating scent of toasted nut oil. But that is a task for another day. Tonight is for the stillness. The farmhouse seems to breathe with you. The old timbers groan occasionally, settling into their foundations as they have done for generations. You notice a small spider, a tiny weaver of silk, descending from a darkened beam on a thread so fine it's nearly invisible. It too is a tenant of this kitchen, a silent witness to the cracking of shells. You feel a strange kinship with all living things in this moment. The trees outside, the fire, the spider, the stone, everything is connected by the slow turning wheel of time. You crack another shell, the sound echoing softly against the dresser where the pewter plates stand in orderly rows. These plates have held countless meals, have been polished by many hands, and will remain long after the night has passed. The continuity of domestic life is a comfort that modern hearts often forget. In 1810, things are built to last, meant to be mended and cherished for their utility. You reach for the wine glass, the glass cool against your fingertips. The wine is tart and earthy, tasting of the very soil of the valley. It warms your throat and settles in your chest, adding another layer to the pervasive sense of well-being. The wind has picked up again, a low hum that vibrates through the heavy shutters, but it only makes the interior feel more like a fortress of peace. You look at the pile of shells in the bucket. They look like a collection of broken armor, their duty of protecting the seed finally complete. You are the one who harvests the reward. The rhythm of your hands is now so ingrained that you no longer need to look. Your eyes drift to the heart of the fire, where a blue flame flickers momentarily, a sign, the old folks say, of a change in the weather. But here by the hearth, the weather is always autumn, always the harvest, always the warm embrace of home. You find yourself thinking of the ancestors who built this fireplace, who carved the initials into the lintel above the door. They sat where you sit. They heard the same thud of the shells. They felt the same heat of the oak logs. You are never truly alone in a kitchen this old. The walls are saturated with the echoes of laughter, the murmurs of prayer, and the steady cadence of work. It is a thick, rich silence, a silence that speaks of endurance and the simple beauty of being alive. You crack another nut. The sound a punctuation mark in the long, unwritten poem of the evening. The shadows in the corners of the kitchen have deepened, turning the familiar shapes of the butter churn and the flour bin into soft, indistinct silhouettes. The only world that truly exists is the hemisphere of golden light extending from the hearth. You reach for a walnut that is unusually smooth, its surface almost polished. When it breaks, it reveals a kernel that is ivory white, pristine and sweet. You place it in the bowl with a delicate touch, as if it were a gemstone. The heat from the fireplace has reached a peak of mellow perfection. The logs have broken down into a landscape of glowing canyons and mountain peaks of ash. You take a moment to adjust your position, the old wood of the chair creaking a familiar greeting. Your muscles feel heavy, but it is a good heaviness, the kind that precedes a deep and dreamless sleep. You think of the bed upstairs with its thick feather mattress and linen sheets that smell of dried lavender, but you are not ready to leave the fire just yet. The task is too meditative to abandon. The hollow thud of the shells has become the metronome of your thoughts, slowing them down, stripping away the unnecessary. You aren't thinking about the taxes, the farm accounts, or the rumors of the emperor's campaigns in the east. Those things belong to the world of noise here. There is only the thud, the crack, and the hiss. You look at the copper kettle resting on the hob. A thin wisp of steam rises from its spout, glowing like a ghost in the firelight. You imagine the tea or the chicory coffee it could make, but the wine and the chestnuts have left you satisfied. The Dordogne Valley is a land of milk and honey, or rather of wine and walnuts. It provides everything a person needs to find contentment. You find yourself marveling at the design of the walnut, how perfectly the shell fits the meat, how the bitter skin protects the sweetness within. It is a masterpiece of natural engineering. As you work, you notice the flickering light reflecting off the cellar, the stone salt box built into the wall near the fire to keep the salt dry. It is a reminder of the small, essential details that make a home functional. Every part of this room has a purpose. Nothing is for show, everything is for living. You reach into the basket and realize you are nearly halfway through. The steady progress is a silent victory. You feel a sense of pride in your labor, no matter how small it may seem. In the grand tapestry of the year, this evening of shelling is a crucial thread. Without the oil from these nuts, the winter meals would be less rich. Without the rhythm of this work, the soul would be less steady. You are tending to both the body and the spirit. The air in the kitchen is still, the only movement being the rise and fall of the flames and the practiced motion of your arms. You are a part of the landscape now as much as the stone walls or the oak beams. The outside world, with its frantic energies and constant changes, feels like a distant dream. This warmth, this labor, this silence is the reality. This is the truth of 1810. You crack another nut, and the sound is like a small bell ringing in the cathedral of the night. The fire has begun to settle into a deep, rhythmic pulse, the embers breathing in and out with a soft, glowing intensity. The pile of walnut meat in the bowl is now a substantial mound, a testament to the hours that have slipped by unnoticed. You reach for a chestnut that has rolled further away from the heat, peeling it slowly, The texture is firm and the flavor is concentrated, a burst of earthy sweetness that lingers on the tongue. The kitchen has become a sanctuary of sensory memories. You remember your grandmother sitting in this very spot, her fingers moving with a speed that yours have yet to match, her voice a low murmur as she told stories of the great winter or the legends of the valley. Those stories are etched into the walls, vibrating in the very grain of the oak table. You are the current guardian of these memories. The wooden bucket is nearly full now, the shells reaching toward the rim in a jagged, woody mosaic. The thud has turned into a dry clack as new shells hit the layer of old ones. It is a satisfying sound, the sound of completion. You look at the heavy, dark beams overhead, seeing the hooks where the herbs and hams hang, and you feel a profound sense of gratitude for the security of this structure. It has weathered storms and centuries, and it holds you now in a firm, unwavering embrace. As the night deepens, the connection between you and the past becomes almost tangible, a thread of light stretching back through the ages. You are not just shelling walnuts, you are participating in a timeless ritual of survival and peace. The world outside may be cold and dark, but here, the light is constant and the warmth is deep. You take another sip of the wine, feeling its glow spread to your fingertips. The rhythm of the work has become a form of prayer, a silent acknowledgement of the gifts of the earth. You are at peace with the world, and the world is at peace with you. The silence is no longer something to be filled, but something to be savored, a rich and heavy fabric that wraps around your heart. You feel the weight of the evening, a gentle pressure that coaxes your eyelids to droop. But there is still a small handful of walnuts left in the basket, and you intend to finish them. Each one is a small promise of the spring to come, a seed that holds the potential for a whole new grove. You crack one, and the sound is sharp and clear, a final exclamation point on the evening's work. Sleepy History with Tales is a sleep history storytelling platform created for entertainment, inspiration, education, and the promotion of positive emotional values. The bottom of the willow basket finally reveals itself, the woven wood smooth and pale where the walnuts have rested for weeks. There are only a few dozen left, rolling slightly as you tilt the container to reach them. The kitchen has reached a state of perfect thermal equilibrium. The massive stone blocks of the hearth have absorbed so much heat that they radiate a gentle, sun-like warmth even toward the farthest corners of the room. You pick up a nut that is almost perfectly spherical, a rarity in the harvest. As you hold it, you think of the grand cycles of the Dordogne, the way the river carves the limestone, the way the seasons carve the people. This walnut is a tiny microcosm of that endurance. You place it on the stone, crack. The sound feels more intimate now, as if the house itself is listening. The bowl of nut meat is a heavy, fragrant prize. These kernels will soon be taken to the community mill where the air hums with the sound of the water wheel and the heavy scent of roasting mash. You can almost taste the first press of the oil on a crust of warm bread. This vision of future sustenance makes the current labor feel light, almost effortless. If you're enjoying this peaceful retreat into the farmhouse of 1810, please take a moment to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. We would love to hear what era of history brings you the most comfort. Your engagement helps our community of history lovers grow. You return your focus to the last of the basket. The wind outside has shifted, now a distant moan rather than a direct assault on the shutters. It feels as though the valley itself is settling in for the night, tucking itself under a blanket of mist and starlight. You reach for the very last chestnut in the embers. It has charred slightly more than the others, giving it a smoky, almost chocolate-like richness. You eat it slowly, savoring the warmth. The rhythm of the evening is coming to a natural close, but the peace it has established in your heart remains. You look at the pile of shells. Tomorrow, they will be used to line the garden path or perhaps thrown into the fire to provide one last burst of fragrant heat. Nothing is lost. Nothing is forgotten. You feel the deep, rhythmic pulse of the farmhouse, a pulse that has beat since the foundations were laid and will continue long after you have gone to your rest. You are a part of this pulse, a part of the stone and the wood and the smoke. The final walnut is lifted from the basket. You hold it for a moment, feeling its coolness before the heat of the fire claims it. This is the end of the harvest cycle, the final act of a season that began with the first blossoms of spring. You place it on the cracking stone with a sense of ceremony. One last snap, one last thud as the shell falls into the brimming bucket. The task is complete. You lean back in the ladder-back chair, letting your arms hang loosely at your sides. Your fingers are stained slightly dark from the tannins in the shells, a mark of honest work that will fade in a few days, but the memory of this stillness will stay. The fire has burned down to a deep, pulsating crimson, the logs now a delicate architecture of glowing charcoal. The kitchen is silent, save for the slow, rhythmic ticking of the cherrywood clock and the occasional soft crumble of ash. You look around the room, seeing it not just as a place of work, but as a vessel of time. The copper pans, the stone sink, the heavy oak table, they are all witnesses to the continuity of life. In this moment, the year 1810 feels not like a date in a history book, but like a living, breathing reality. You feel a profound sense of accomplishment. The bowl is full, the bucket is full, and your spirit is full. The warmth of the hearth has seeped through your clothing and into your skin, creating a sensation of being weightless, as if you are floating in a sea of amber light. The world of the future, with all its complexities and anxieties, is an impossibility here. You are anchored in the present, in the sensory truth of the Dordogne. You take the last sip of your wine, the liquid cool and dark, a perfect closing note to the evening. You watch the last flickers of blue flame dance over the coals, a silent ballet of energy returning to the earth. The night is deep, the farmhouse is secure, and the rhythm of the harvest has provided you with a sanctuary of peace. You feel ready now for the climb up the narrow wooden stairs, for the heavy blankets and the soft pillow, knowing that the house will watch over you until the sun rises over the walnut groves once more. Sleepy History with Wesley combines the power of AI to reimagine fictional historical tales, bringing peace, relaxation, and positive emotional values to our listeners. You remain still for a few minutes more, unwilling to break the spell of the silence. The shadows on the ceiling are long and soft, moving with the slow respiration of the dying fire. You think of the valley outside, the river winding its way through the limestone cliffs, the mist rising from the water to cling to the roots of the ancient oaks. Somewhere out there, an owl hoots, a lonely, haunting sound that only emphasizes the warmth and safety of the kitchen. This is the herb blue of the farmhouse, the time between the labor of the day and the deep rest of the night. You reach out and touch the stone of the hearth one last time. It is rough, solid, and incredibly warm. It is the very definition of home. You look at the bowl of walnut kernels, their pale surfaces gleaming in the low light. They represent more than just food. They represent the resilience of the land and the patience of those who tend it. In 1810, you understand that some things cannot be rushed. The walnuts take a season to grow, a month to dry, and an evening to shell. There is a dignity in that patience, a grace in the slow unfolding of time. You stand up slowly, your joints feeling loose and relaxed. You pick up the heavy ceramic bowl and move it to the cool pantry, the flagstones beneath your feet feeling like solid ground after a long voyage. The air in the pantry is sharp and fresh, smelling of apples and damp earth. You set the bowl on a shelf next to the jars of preserved plums and the crocks of salted butter. Tomorrow the work will continue, the pressing of the oil, the baking of the bread, but for now the work is done. You return to the kitchen and stand before the fire, watching the last of the sparks drift upward. The rhythm of the shells falling into the bucket still echoes in your mind, a soothing, repetitive beat that has cleared the clutter from your soul. You feel a deep, quiet joy, the kind that comes from simple things: heat, light, labor, and the shelter of thick stone walls. The night has been a journey, not across distance but into the depths of your own being. You are at one with the history of this place, a quiet participant in the eternal story of the Dordogne. The fire gives one last soft pop, as if saying good night, and you turn to leave the circle of light, carrying the warmth of the hearth within you as you head toward the rest you have earned. The transition from the hearth's glow to the shadows of the rest of the room is like wading into a cool, dark pool. You linger by the edge of the light, watching the way the dying embers cast a long flickering shadow of the empty willow basket against the white-plastered wall. The kitchen, which felt so small and intimate while you were focused on the walnuts, now feels vast and cavernous. The silence has a texture to it, a thickness born of stone and time. You reach out and touch the heavy oak table, the wood cool and scarred by 100 years of knife marks, spilled wine, and the kneading of dough. It is a solid, dependable presence. You think of the hands that have touched this wood before you. Farmers, weavers, children leaning on their elbows while listening to stories just like this one. In the Dordogne of 1810, everything has a lineage. Nothing is disposable. The air grows slightly crisper as you move away from the fireplace, the scent of the wood smoke becoming less sharp and more sweet. Like incense, you look back at the cantu one last time. The iron pot crane hangs like a silent sentinel over the glowing remains. There is a profound sense of closure in the sight. The labor of the day has been folded away, the harvest processed, the hunger of the fire fed. You feel a deep biological satisfaction, the kind that can only be found in the physical world of textures and weights. The hollow thud of the shells in the bucket is now just a memory, but it has left behind a sense of mental clarity. Your mind is as clean as the freshly swept hearth. You begin to walk toward the back of the house, your footsteps making a soft, rhythmic sound on the stone floors. Every creak of the house is a familiar voice, a reassurance that the farmhouse is awake and watching over you. The windows are dark squares of midnight, but you don't need to see outside to know that the valley is there, breathing in the mist, waiting for the first touch of the winter frost. As you reach the base of the narrow, winding staircase, you stop to pick up a small tallow candle sitting in a brass holder. You lean over the embers to catch a flame, the wick sputtering to life with a tiny, courageous light. This small flame is now your companion, illuminating the grain of the wood as you begin the slow climb upward. The stairs are steep and slightly uneven, worn down in the center by generations of climbing feet. Each step is a deliberate movement, a gradual rising above the day's toil. If you have found a sense of calm and restoration in this historical journey, please subscribe and join our community of listeners who cherish the quiet stories of the past. By hitting the notification bell, you ensure that you are always invited back to the farmhouse whenever the world becomes too loud. Now, as you reach the upper landing, the air is cooler still, carrying the faint, clean scent of the limestone and the dry grass of the attic. The floorboards here are wider, made of ancient chestnut wood that glows a deep honey color in your candlelight. You pass the heavy doors of the other sleeping chambers, where the rest of the family is already submerged in the deep, heavy sleep of the countryside. You feel a sense of stewardship, being the last one to retire, the one who saw the fire to its rest. You enter your room where the heavy linen curtains move slightly in a draught that no wall, however thick, can completely bar. The bed is a mountain of down and wool, a sanctuary within a sanctuary. You set the candle on the bedside table and sit on the edge of the mattress, feeling it sink beneath you with a soft, welcoming sigh. The quiet here is different from the kitchen. It is the quiet of the stars, the quiet of the dormant earth. You are tired in the best possible way, a weariness of the body that allows the soul to soar. The candle flame dances in the slight draught, casting tall, spindly shadows that stretch across the beamed ceiling. You begin to unlace your heavy leather boots, the sound of the laces pulling through the eyelets sharp in the stillness. As you set them down on the floor, you think of the miles they have walked through the walnut groves, over the rolling hills of the valley, and across the muddy banks of the Dordogne. They are the tools of your mobility, just as the cracking stone was the tool of your harvest. You stand up to pull back the heavy quilt, which is stitched with patterns of flowers and vines, a labor of love from a winter long ago. The sheets are cool to the touch, smelling faintly of the sunshine that dried them on the line, and the lavender sprigs tucked into the linen press. You climb into the bed, the feathers rising up to meet you, cocooning you in a warmth that is entirely your own. From this vantage point, the world of 1810 feels perfect in its simplicity. You are not a citizen of a sprawling empire or a pawn in a geopolitical game. You are a person of the soil, a part of the rhythm of the farmhouse. You listen to the house settling, a pop of wood, a sigh of stone, the distant rattling of a shutter. It is a lullaby of the landscape. You reach out and blow out the candle, the smoke rising in a thin, fragrant ribbon before disappearing into the dark. Now, your eyes adjust to the moonlight filtering through the cracks in the shutters, drawing silver lines across the floor. You are safe, you are warm. The walnuts are shelled, the chestnuts are eaten, and the fire is resting. The cycle of the day is complete, and as you close your eyes, the rhythmic thud of the shells seems to beat in time with your heart, a steady, grounding pulse that leads you down into the soft velvet depths of sleep. The Dordogne Valley sleeps with you, its secrets tucked away in the stone and the trees, waiting for the morning light to begin the story anew. The darkness of the bedroom is not empty, it is a living, breathing thing, heavy with the history of the Dordogne. As you lie there, the rhythmic pulse of your heart seems to sync with the memory of the walnut shells falling into the bucket, that hollow, echoing thud that resonated through the flagstone floor. In the silence, your mind wanders back down the stairs, through the cool air of the hallway, and into the kitchen you just left. You can almost see the faint, pulsing orange glow of the embers still radiating from the hearth. It is the heart of the farmhouse, a low-burning sun that ensures the house never truly grows cold. You think of the walnut oil that will come from your labor, the huile de noix. It is more than just a kitchen staple, it is the essence of the valley, a dark, fragrant liquid that carries the flavor of the earth and the memory of the sun. You imagine the heavy stone mill, pulled by a steady, breathy ox, slowly turning until the nuts are transformed. Life in 1810 is slow, yes, but it is a meaningful slowness. Every action has a tangible result. Every crack of a shell tonight was a step toward a winter of well-fed comfort. The wind outside has found a new crevice to whistle through, a high, thin note that sounds like a distant flute. It reminds you of the travelers who might be out on the road, seeking shelter in an inn or perhaps huddled in the lee of a limestone cliff. You feel a surge of compassion for the world beyond these walls, but it is quickly overtaken by the overwhelming gratitude for your own sanctuary. The thick walls are like the shell of the walnut itself, hard, protective, and harboring something precious within. You shift slightly, the feathers of the mattress shifting with you, and you feel the weight of the hand-woven blankets pressing down, a comforting burden that keeps the chill at bay. You are drifting now, the boundaries between the room and your dreams beginning to blur. The scent of the wood smoke still clings to your hair, a fragrant reminder of the cantu. You are a part of the house, and the house is a part of you. In the half-light of your drifting consciousness, the kitchen reappears, but this time it is filled with the ghosts of harvests past. You see the shadow forms of those who sat in your chair 50 years ago, their hands moving in the same practiced arcs, their eyes fixed on the same flickering flames. There is a profound comfort in this continuity. You realize that the task of shelling walnuts is a thread that binds the generations together, a simple, repetitive act that defies the chaos of the outside world. The year 1810 may be a time of great upheaval in the cities, but here the laws of nature remain supreme. The seasons turn, the trees bear fruit, and the people gather it. It is a cycle of faith. You think of the walnut trees themselves, standing out there in the dark, their roots deep in the limestone soil, drinking in the autumn rain. They are the silent providers, the ancient sentinels of the valley. Their wood makes the furniture that populates this room, and their fruit sustains the bodies within. As you sink deeper into the pillow, you feel a sense of profound humility. You are a small part of a much larger story, a single note in the long, slow song of the Dordogne. The silence of the room is punctuated only by the distant, muffled sound of a log settling further in the kitchen below, a final soft clunk that echoes up through the floorboards. It is as if the house is finally tucking itself in, closing its eyes for the night. You find yourself matching your breath to the rhythm of the house, deep, slow, and steady. The darkness is a soft blanket, and the memories of the evening are the stars that guide you into sleep. You are not just resting, you are restoring yourself, drawing strength from the stone and the wood, preparing for the morning when the smell of fresh bread will replace the scent of roasting chestnuts. The dream begins as a soft light, like the sun rising through a thick morning mist over the river. In your mind's eye, you are back in the walnut grove, the air crisp and sharp, the ground covered in a carpet of gold and brown leaves. You can feel the weight of the long pole in your hands. The gorlis used to knock the nuts from the high branches. You hear the rain of walnuts hitting the ground, a chaotic musical clatter that precedes the quiet shelling by the fire. It is a memory of movement and light, a contrast to the stillness of the current night. But even in the dream, the rhythm remains. The world is a series of pulses, the swing of the pole, the beat of the heart, the fall of the shell. You see the faces of your neighbors, their breath blooming in the cold air as they help with the harvest, the communal spirit that makes the hard work feel like a celebration. This is the social fabric of 1810, a web of mutual reliance and shared labor. As the dream shifts, you are back in the kitchen, but the room is filled with light. The shutters are open, and the valley is a vibrant green and gold tapestry outside the window, but for now you prefer the dark. You prefer the memory of the single candle, the warmth of the hearth, and the hollow thud of the shells. Those are the things that bring true peace. You are descending now, deeper into the velvet folds of sleep, where the sounds of the world fade into a single low hum. The farmhouse stands firm around you, a fortress of limestone and oak, protecting your dreams just as it protected your labor. The walnuts are shelled. The work is done. The soul is at rest. You are home. The deep midnight of the Dordogne holds a silence that is almost tactile, a heavy velvet that presses against the windows of the farmhouse. Inside your room, the air has stilled completely, the silver moonlight now casting long skeletal fingers of light across the heavy chest at the foot of your bed. You find yourself in that liminal space between waking and dreaming, where the sensations of the evening become exaggerated and poetic. The phantom sensation of the walnut's rough texture still lingers on your fingertips, a ghostly reminder of the hundreds of shells you broke. You think of the limestone caves that honeycomb the valley below, deep subterranean cathedrals where the water drips with the same rhythmic patience you displayed tonight. The earth itself is slow, and tonight you have finally caught up to its pace. The farmhouse seems to expand and contract with a slow thermal breath. You are conscious of the massive weight of the roof tiles above you, thousands of slabs of stone holding back the vastness of the French sky. In 1810, the sky feels closer, unburdened by the glow of distant cities, filled only with the cold, bright fire of stars that have guided sailors and farmers for millennia. You feel a strange sense of power in your stillness. By doing nothing now, you are allowing the work of the evening to settle into the marrow of your bones. The walnut oil that exists only in your mind's eye for now, that golden viscous liquid, is the fruit of your patience. It represents the quiet victory of the individual over the encroaching winter. As a floorboard somewhere in the hallway gives a sharp, dry pop, you don't startle. You recognize it as the house settling its bones, a familiar domestic language. You're drifting further down now, the images of the hearth fire beginning to dissolve into abstract patterns of orange and black. The world is small, the world is safe, and the rhythm of the valley is the only law you need to follow. Deep within the subconscious, the sound of the cracking walnut begins to transform. It becomes the sound of a distant hoofbeat on the valley road, then the rhythmic thumping of a loom in a neighbor's cottage, and finally it settles back into the hollow thud against the bottom of the wooden bucket. This sound is the heartbeat of your history. You dream of the great walnut trees in the height of summer. Their leaves are vibrant, dusty green, shimmering in the heat haze that rises from the river. You see yourself walking among them, checking the progress of the green husks, feeling the promise of the fat kernels hidden inside. The dream is a tapestry of gold and emerald, a reminder that the labor of the autumn night is born from the glory of the summer sun. You feel the connection between your hands and the roots of the trees, a circuit of energy that spans the seasons. In the dream, the farmhouse kitchen is a palace of light, the copper pans shining like polished shields, the air dancing with the scent of dried thyme and roasting meat. But even in this bright vision, the most important thing is the quiet corner by the fire. It is the place of reflection, the place where the soul catches up to the body. You see the faces of children not yet born, sitting in that same ladder-back chair, their small hands learning the same rhythm you practiced tonight. This is the immortality of the countryside, not in monuments of stone, but in the repetition of the task. The walnut remains the same, the fire remains the same, the need for warmth and sustenance remains the same. You feel a wave of profound contentment wash over you, a liquid peace that fills every corner of your mind. The dream is a sanctuary, a place where time is a circle rather than a line, and you are exactly where you are meant to be. As the hours of the morning draw near, the temperature in the room drops just enough to make you pull the heavy wool quilt tighter around your chin. The scent of the lavender in the sheets is a faint, clean whisper against your senses. You are now in the deepest part of sleep, the place where the body heals and the spirit wanders the ancient paths of the Dordogne. You are no longer an individual with a name and a date. You are the essence of the farmhouse itself. You are the stone that holds the heat, the wood that supports the weight, and the fire that provides the light. The memory of the thud in the bucket has become a steady, low-frequency hum, a grounding vibration that keeps you anchored even as your dreams take flight. You think of the river again, the dark, powerful Dordogne flowing tirelessly toward the sea. It carries the silt of the mountains and the stories of the valley, a relentless witness to the passage of time. But inside the farmhouse, time is held in check. The 4-foot thick walls create a bubble of eternity, a space where 1810 is forever, and tonight is all that matters. You feel a sense of profound protection. Nothing can reach you here. The worries of the harvest, the fears of the future, the weight of the past, all have been processed, cracked open and sorted like the walnuts in the bowl. What remains is the meat, the essence, the part that nourishes. You are resting in the core of your own life, protected by the hard shell of your home and your heritage. The world is waiting for the dawn, but you are not in a hurry. The night is a gift, a long, dark corridor of peace that you are walking through with slow, confident steps. Every breath you take is a prayer of gratitude for the warmth, the work, and the silence. The harvest is truly over, and the rest is well deserved. The darkness of the pre-dawn hours is the quietest time in the Dordogne. Even the wind seems to have fallen into a deep slumber, leaving the farmhouse in a state of absolute ringing silence. As you lie in the feather bed, the lingering warmth of the evening spent by the hearth acts as an internal compass, keeping you centered in a world of shadows. You think of the wooden bucket downstairs, now brimming with the jagged remnants of your labor. Those shells, once the sturdy protectors of the harvest, have fulfilled their final purpose. In the morning you will carry them out to the garden, and the crisp morning air will bite at your cheeks, reminding you that winter is a living thing, moving closer with every sunrise. But that is a thought for a later hour. For now, the only reality is the weight of the blankets and the rhythmic, slow expansion of your chest. This is the restorative power of the farmhouse, a place where the boundaries between the human and the land are blurred. If these echoes of 1810 have brought a sense of tranquility to your evening, we invite you to subscribe to the channel and join our community of historical travelers. Your support allows us to continue weaving these tapestries of time and peace. As you drift back toward the edges of sleep, you imagine the kitchen hearth. The embers are now grey, veiled like sleeping eyes, but deep within their hearts a spark remains. It is the same spark that lives in the walnut kernel, the potential for life, for warmth, and for continuity. You are the guardian of that spark. You feel the immense, silent weight of the valley surrounding you, the limestone cliffs standing like ancient gods in the mist. The history of this place is not written in ink, but in the grain of the wood and the soot on the chimney. You are a part of that writing. You are a word in the long, beautiful sentence of the Dordogne's life. In your dreams, the kitchen is no longer a room, but a vast golden cathedral of the harvest. The ceiling is the underside of a giant walnut shell, and the light comes from the glowing hearts of 1,000 chestnuts. You find yourself moving through this space with a grace you never knew in waking life. The thud of the shells has become a musical note, a deep, resonant bass that vibrates through the soles of your feet. It is the music of the earth's gratitude. You see the trees of the valley as living beings, their branches reaching out to offer their bounty not out of obligation but out of a deep ancestral love for the soil. You understand now that the act of shelling is an act of listening. By breaking the shell, you are hearing the story of the tree, the spring rains, the summer heat, the struggle against the storm. Each nut is a diary entry of the year. In 1810, you are attuned to these whispers. You see the hands of your children's children reaching into that same willow basket, and you realize that the work you did tonight is a gift sent forward in time. It is an insurance policy of peace. The dream shifts to the river, the Dordogne, reflecting the silver of 1,000 moons. The water carries the discarded shells away, returning them to the elements. You feel a sense of lightness, as if the physical weight of your body has been replaced by the scent of wood smoke and lavender. You are floating in the very essence of home. The kitchen, the fire, the walnuts, they are the anchors that allow your soul to drift safely into the deepest reaches of the night. You are not afraid of the dark, for you have seen the fire at its heart. The first hint of the coming dawn is not a light, but a change in the texture of the air. It grows thinner, sharper, carrying the scent of the frost that is currently forming on the walnut leaves outside. You stir slightly in your sleep, pulling the quilt up to your ears. The silence of the room is now punctuated by the distant, rhythmic lowing of a cow in the barn, a sound that signals the awakening of the farm's heartbeat. Soon the kitchen will be alive again. Someone will stir the embers, add a handful of kindling, and the cantu will roar back to life. The smell of frying salt pork and the whistling of the kettle will replace the meditative thud of the shells. But for these final moments of the night, the peace of the harvest remains unbroken. You are resting on the laurels of a job well done. The walnut oil that will be pressed, the bread that will be baked, the stories that will be told around the full bowls, all of it is secure. You feel a profound sense of integration. You are not separate from the 1810 farmhouse. You are its breath. The limestone walls are your skin, the oak beams are your bones, and the fire is your spirit. As the moon fades and the stars begin to wink out one by one, you sink into one last deep valley of rest. It is a sleep without images, a pure dark restoration that prepares you for the light. The rhythm of the walnut shells has done its work, smoothing the jagged edges of your mind and leaving you as polished as the stone on the hearth. The Dordogne is waking, but you are still held in the gentle, powerful arms of the night. You are home, you are safe, and the harvest is complete. The blue hour begins to seep through the cracks in the heavy oak shutters, a pale, ghostly light that slowly defines the contours of the room. It is that fragile moment when the world is neither dark nor light, a suspended breath of time. In the kitchen below, the great stone hearth has cooled to a mellow, lingering warmth, though the scent of the wood smoke remains a permanent resident of the air. You lie in the stillness, your mind wandering back to the rhythmic labor of the night. The pile of walnut meat, now resting in the cool pantry, is a silent victory over the coming winter. You think of the texture of the shells, how they felt in your hand, each one a unique puzzle of nature's design. In 1810, there is no separation between the person and the product of their hands. The oil that will eventually be pressed from those nuts will carry the very vibration of your patience. It will be the soul of the winter soups and the richness of the holiday cakes. As the light grows, you hear the house begin its morning dialogue. A joist expands with a sharp, woody snap. The chimney flue draws in a fresh breath of cold air. You are conscious of the immense history contained within these walls. This farmhouse has watched Napoleonic armies march in the distance, has heard the rumors of revolution, yet it remains steadfast in its devotion to the seasons. The walnut harvest does not care for the whims of emperors. It only cares for the rain, the sun, and the hands that gather it. You feel a deep, grounding connection to this reality. The thud of the shells falling into the bucket is a more powerful sound than any drum of war. It is the sound of life continuing, of a family being fed, of a tradition being honored. You are a link in an unbreakable chain of survival and gratitude. The shadows are retreating now, pulling back into the corners and under the heavy furniture like shy creatures of the night. You watch the silver-grey light touch the ceramic pitcher on your washstand, turning its simple glaze into something ethereal. The peace you cultivated during the evening of shelling has not dissipated. It has merely changed form. It is no longer a rhythmic activity, but a steady state of being. You think of the walnut trees outside, now visible in the misty dawn, They stand like tired giants, their branches lighter now that the burden of the fruit is gone. They will spend the winter in a deep, dreamless sleep, drawing their strength back into their roots, just as you have drawn your strength from the hearth. There is a profound symmetry in this. The land gives, the human receives and processes, and in the end everything returns to the soil. You find yourself contemplating the simplicity of your tools, the cracking stone, the wooden bucket, the willow basket. They are honest objects made of the earth and destined to return to it. In 1810, there is a luxury in the lack of excess. Every object is known, every tool is cherished. You feel a sense of clarity that is often lost in the noise of other eras. Your world is defined by the reach of your arms and the heat of your fire. As the first bird begins to chirp in the hedge, a cold, bright sound that pierces the silence, you feel a surge of vitality. The rest has been deep and restorative. The memory of the roasting chestnuts still brings a phantom sweetness to your tongue. You are ready for the day, not because you must rush, but because you are fueled by the quiet satisfaction of the night before. The harvest is not just a season, it is a state of mind. In the kitchen, the first person to rise moves with a quiet, practiced reverence. You hear the soft shush of the broom sweeping the hearth, the clink of the iron kettle being filled at the stone sink. The smell of fresh kindling catching fire begins to drift up the stairs, a sharp, resinous scent of pine and dry twigs. This is the rebirth of the day. The thud of the walnut shells has been replaced by the crackle of new flames. You imagine the shells being looked at for a moment, a silent acknowledgement of the work you did while the others slept. They are the evidence of your care. Soon, the house will be full of the sounds of life, the heavy boots on the stairs, the low murmur of morning greetings, the steam rising from the bowls of porridge. But you hold on to this final moment of solitude. You are the bridge between the quiet labor of the night and the active energy of the day. You realize that the farmhouse is a living organism, and the kitchen is its heart. The walnuts you shelled are the fuel for that heart. As the sun finally breaks over the rim of the Dordogne Valley, casting a sudden brilliant gold light through the shutters, you feel a profound sense of alignment. The world is in its place and you are in yours. The rhythm of the harvest is the rhythm of your own blood. You are a child of the Dordogne, a keeper of the flame and a participant in the eternal gratitude of the hearth. You close your eyes for one last, lingering second, breathing in the cold air and the warm smoke, feeling the perfect balance of the life you have chosen. The full light of morning now floods the room, revealing the dust motes dancing in the air like tiny golden spirits. You sit up in bed, the cool air of the room a refreshing contrast to the warmth of the blankets. The journey of the night is over, but its influence remains. You feel steady, grounded, and deeply at peace. The task of shelling the walnuts, which seemed so simple, has proven to be a profound meditation on the nature of home and the passage of time. As you prepare to descend the stairs and join the morning bustle, remember that this sanctuary is always here for you. The farmhouse of 1810 is not just a place in history, it is a place in the heart where the fire never truly goes out. If you have found comfort and rest in this story of the Dordogne Valley, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay connected with our historical journeys. Your presence in our community helps us keep these tales of peace and positive emotional values alive. Every like and comment is a shell in our bucket, a testament to the power of slow storytelling. Now, as you step out of bed and feel the solid wood floor beneath your feet, carry the rhythm of the harvest with you. Let the steady, grounding thud of the shells be a reminder that even the simplest tasks can be a prayer of gratitude. The valley is awake, the fire is bright, and a new day of the harvest has begun. You are ready to meet it, for you have spent the night in the heart of the home. Sleepy History with Wesley is a platform where the past is reimagined to bring you peace. And tonight, the Dordogne has shared its greatest secret, that the true harvest is the peace we find in the work of our hands. The morning light has fully claimed the upper floor, turning the dark chestnut floorboards into a glowing path toward the stairs. As you descend, the air begins to warm again, the scent of the new fire rising to meet you. When you enter the kitchen, it looks different than it did in the amber shadow play of the previous night. The cantu is now a bright, active furnace, and the pale blue smoke rises in a straight, confident line. You glance toward the corner where you sat. The empty willow basket has been tucked away, and the wooden bucket of shells has been moved toward the door, ready to be repurposed. The ceramic bowl of nut meat sits on the larder shelf, its contents looking like a small mountain of pale gold. This sight brings a renewed sense of purpose. In the daylight of 1810, the work of the night before reveals its true value. It is the foundation for the day's nourishment. You watch the steam rising from the heavy iron pot, the bubbles of the morning pottage breaking the surface with a soft rhythmic sound that mimics the cracking of the shells. The cycle has not stopped, it has merely shifted its tone. You feel a deep physical connection to the room, the way the rough-hewn stone of the sink feels under your hands as you splash cool water on your face, the way the air tastes of toasted grain and oak. This is the reality of the Dordogne Valley, a life built on the repeating patterns of nature. The walnut trees outside are now visible through the window, their silver-grey bark gleaming in the morning sun. They look satisfied, as if they know their bounty is being well tended. You realize that your time at the hearth was not just about the nuts, it was about honoring the tree's year of growth. As the family gathers around the heavy oak table, the atmosphere is one of quiet, industrious calm. The conversation is low, focused on the tasks ahead, the mending of the fence, the tending of the livestock, the preparation for the oil pressing. You find yourself listening to the cadence of their voices, which has the same steady, grounding quality as the thud of the shells. There is no urgency here, only the steady application of effort. You take your seat, the wood of the chair familiar and supportive. As you break a piece of dark, crusty bread, you think of the flour and the oil, the salt and the water, the basic elements that sustain life in this valley. Everything is interconnected. The walnuts you shelled will soon become the oil that seasons this very bread. You feel a sense of profound stewardship. You're not just consuming the landscape, you are participating in its transformation. The thick walls of the farmhouse, which felt like a shield against the wind last night, now feel like a vessel for the sunlight. The kitchen is alive with the dance of dust motes and the bright reflection of copper. In this moment, 1810 feels like the pinnacle of human existence, a time when the connection between the hand, the heart, and the hearth was absolute. You look at the fireplace where the embers of your nighttime vigil have been buried under new logs. The continuity of the flame is a symbol of the house's endurance. It has burned for generations, and it will burn for many more, fueled by the wood of the valley and the care of those who call this stone fortress home. The day begins to pull you outward, toward the fields and the groves, but the stillness of the night remains within you like a hidden treasure. You walk toward the door, pausing to run your hand over the lintel, feeling the grain of the wood and the coolness of the stone. Outside the valley is a sea of mist, with the tops of the walnut trees rising like islands in a white ocean. The air is sharp and invigorating, smelling of wet earth and fallen leaves. As you carry the bucket of shells to the garden path, the sound of them spilling out, a dry, rustling clatter, is the final note of the harvest symphony. They will crunch under your boots for weeks to come, a tactile reminder of the evening spent by the fire. You look back at the farmhouse, its chimney sending a plume of white smoke into the pale blue sky. It looks like an anchor, holding the valley steady against the flow of time. You feel a deep, marrow-deep peace. The rhythm of the walnut shells has become the rhythm of your life, steady, patient, and full of gratitude. The world of 1810 is a world of slow beauty, and you are its witness. As you turn toward the groves to begin the day's work, you carry the warmth of the hearth in your spirit, knowing that when the sun sets again, the fire will be waiting, the basket will be full, and the sanctuary of the farmhouse will once again wrap you in its silent golden embrace. The harvest continues, and with it, the eternal story of the Dordogne. The mist in the valley begins to burn away as the sun climbs higher, revealing the rolling contours of the Dordogne landscape. You stand at the edge of the grove, the empty wooden bucket swinging lightly at your side, watching the transformation of the world from silver to gold. The silence of the morning is different from the silence of the night. It is expectant, filled with the potential of the day's labor. You think back to the rhythmic thud of the shells, and you realize that the task was a form of mental clearing, a way to sweep away the clutter of the mind to make room for the clarity of the morning. Each walnut cracked was a meditation on the season's end. The trees around you stand in silent dignity, their bark textured like the very stone of the farmhouse. In 1810 there is a profound understanding that we do not own the land, we are merely its seasonal guests entrusted with its care. You reach out and touch the trunk of an ancient walnut tree, feeling the vibration of the earth beneath its roots. It has seen many such harvests, many such nights by the fire. You feel a sense of shared history with the wood and the stone. The farmhouse, sitting sturdily in the distance, is a testament to this partnership. It was built from the bones of the earth, limestone and oak, and it serves as the bridge between the wildness of the valley and the comfort of the human spirit. The shells you scattered on the path now crunch beneath your feet, a grounding sound that connects your movement to your rest. This is the circular nature of life in the valley. Nothing is ever truly finished, it simply changes form, moving from the tree to the basket, from the basket to the hearth, and from the hearth back to the soil. As the morning progresses, you find yourself back near the stone walls of the kitchen, drawn by the magnetic warmth that still seems to emanate from the building's core. You look at the windows, their small glass panes reflecting the bright autumn sky, and you think of the generations who have looked through them, watching the same mist rise and the same leaves fall. The consistency of life in 1810 is its greatest strength. While the world beyond the hills might be caught in the grip of monumental change, the fundamental truths of the Dordogne remain unshaken. The hearth will always need wood, the stomach will always need bread, and the soul will always need the quiet rhythm of a simple task. You feel a deep sense of belonging to this continuity. You are a participant in a ritual that transcends time. The memory of the roasting chestnuts returns to you, a warm and sweet sensation that lingers like a soft echo. It reminds you that even in a life of hard labor, there are moments of intense sensory joy. These are the rewards of the harvest, the heat of the fire, the taste of the nut, the safety of the home. You realize that you have become a part of the house's memory. The walls have absorbed the sound of your breathing and the rhythm of your hands. You are woven into the fabric of the farmhouse, just as the walnut oil will be woven into the fabric of your winter meals. The day is now in full swing, the air alive with the sounds of the farm, but you carry a pocket of stillness within you. It is the peace you found in the corner of the cantu, the gratitude of the walnut sheller. The final part of the morning involves a quiet return to the larder to check on the bowl of walnut meat. You run your fingers through the pale, creamy kernels, feeling their coolness and their density. They are the condensed energy of a whole year of sunlight and rain, held in the palm of your hand. You feel a profound respect for this small, humble fruit. It has provided the valley with light, oil, and food for as long as people have lived here. In 1810, you are acutely aware of this debt to nature. As you set the bowl back on the shelf, you feel a sense of completion that no modern achievement could match. The harvest is gathered, the night has been honored, and the day is being met with a steady heart. The journey from the dark, windy night to the bright, clear morning is a journey of the soul, a transition from work to rest and back to work again. It is the heartbeat of the Dordogne. You step back out into the sunlight, the warmth of the sun on your face matching the lingering warmth of the hearth in your memory. The farmhouse stands behind you, a silent guardian of your peace, its thick walls holding the secrets of 1,000 harvests. You are ready for whatever the season brings for you, have mastered the art of being still in a moving world. The rhythm of the walnut shells will stay with you, a steady grounding beat that will lead you through the winter and into the promise of the spring to come. You are home, and in the valley of the Dordogne, that is everything. The afternoon sun begins its slow descent, casting long golden fingers across the kitchen floor, illuminating the fine dust that floats in the air like a suspension of time. You find yourself standing by the heavy oak door looking back at the cantu. Even in the brightness of day, that corner of the hearth holds a special gravity. It is the place where the silence is deepest and the shadows are most kind. You think of the wooden bucket, now empty of the shells you scattered, and you feel a strange sense of loss for the rhythm of the night. But then you realize that the rhythm hasn't vanished, it has simply moved into the background of your life. It is in the way you walk across the flagstones, the way you breathe the scent of the drying herbs, and the way you look at the walnut trees with a newfound intimacy. In 1810, the work of your hands is never truly finished because it is a cycle, a constant dialogue with the land. You reach for the ceramic bowl of walnut kernels once more just to feel their weight. These will be ground into a paste soon, mixed with local honey to make a treat for the children, or pressed into that precious oil that smells of the forest floor. The kitchen is a place of endless transformation. You see the copper pans reflecting the afternoon light, their surfaces gleaming like the eyes of old friends who have witnessed every harvest of your life. There is no hurry in the farmhouse. The thick stone walls act as a filter, letting in the beauty of the world while keeping out its frantic pace. You are sheltered by history, anchored by the very stones that were pulled from the riverbed 2 centuries ago. As evening approaches once again, the sky over the Dordogne Valley turns a deep, bruised purple, and the first stars begin to prick through the velvet canopy. The air cools rapidly and you feel the familiar pull of the hearth. You return to your chair, the ladder-back wood welcoming you like a warm embrace. The fire is being rebuilt, the new logs catching with a cheerful hiss and a spray of sparks. You realize that you are looking forward to the silence. You reach into the basket refilled today by the younger ones and pull out a fresh walnut. The first crack of the evening echoes through the room, a sharp, clean sound that signals the beginning of another vigil of gratitude. This is the beauty of 1810. The repetition is not a burden, but a comfort. It is the anchor that keeps you from drifting into the unknown. The scent of wood smoke begins to fill the room again, mixing with the lingering aroma of the day's bread. You feel the heat of the fire on your shins, a gentle pressure that coaxes the day's fatigue from your muscles. The thud of the first shell hitting the bottom of the bucket is like the first note of a familiar song. You are back in the rhythm. You think of the world outside, the vast forests and the winding river, and you feel a profound sense of scale. You are small, yes, but you are a vital part of this ecosystem of warmth and care. The farmhouse is your shell, and you are the kernel within, protected and nourished by the traditions of your ancestors. The night deepens, and the kitchen becomes that sacred hemisphere of light once more. You watch the flames dance, their colours shifting from orange to blue to white, a silent firework display just for you. The task of shelling walnuts has become so natural that your mind is free to wander the high ridges of the valley. You imagine the deer moving through the walnut groves, the frost settling on the mossy stones, and the river flowing eternally toward the sea. You are at peace with the darkness. You are at peace with the cold. For as long as there is a hearth, a basket of nuts, and a stone to crack them on, you have everything you need. The simplicity of this existence is a profound luxury. You are not distracted by the trivial, you are focused on the essential. Every walnut is a testament to the earth's generosity, and every shell is a reminder of your own resilience. As the fire settles into a steady glow, you feel a sense of profound unity with the world of 1810. You are a link in the chain, a keeper of the flame, a sheller of walnuts in the heart of the Dordogne. The rhythm is your heartbeat, the smoke is your breath, and the stone is your foundation. You continue your work, a rhythmic prayer in the dark as the farmhouse watches over you with its silent, stone-cold eyes, and the valley dreams its winter dreams beneath the silver moon. The night air has grown thin and sharp, pressing against the leaded window panes, but within the circle of the hearth, the world is a golden sanctuary. You reach for a walnut that has been warmed by the proximity of the fire, its shell dry and brittle. As it yields to the pressure of your stone, the sound is muffled by the thick layer of discarded shells already lining the bucket. The rhythm has become a part of you, a physical manifestation of the farmhouse's own steady breath. You think of the pantry shelves, now holding the jars of kernels you prepared earlier. They are like little jars of captured sunlight, waiting to be released in the dark months of January and February. In 1810, the harvest is not just a seasonal event, it is a fortification against the lean times. You feel a deep sense of pride in this quiet labour. Each movement of your wrist, each selection of a nut from the willow basket is an act of defiance against the cold. The fire gives a sudden bright flare as a pocket of resin in the oak log catches, illuminating the heavy ceiling beams. You notice the shadows of the dried herbs, sage, rosemary, and thyme, dancing like delicate lace against the plaster. They seem to nod in approval of your persistence. The kitchen is a place where nothing is wasted and everything is cherished. Even the dust on the mantelpiece feels like a historical record, a fine silken layer of time itself. You are drifting into a state of profound contemplation, where the boundaries between your own thoughts and the ancient memories of the stone walls begin to dissolve. You are the walnut, you are the stone, you are the fire. As the hour grows truly late, the sounds of the valley outside change. The wind has dropped to a mere sigh, and the silence is so deep you can almost hear the frost crystallizing on the thatch of the barn. Inside, the only sounds are the rhythmic crack and the hollow thud, a heartbeat for a sleeping house. You look at your hands in the flickering light. They are the hands of a worker stained by the earth and the harvest, but they move with a grace that is almost musical. There is a specific dignity in manual labor that requires no audience. You are doing this for the sake of the task itself, for the survival of the household, and for the peace of your own spirit. The year 1810 feels like an eternal present in this moment. You are not waiting for the future, you are inhabiting the now. The walnut meat in the ceramic bowl has a soft pearlescent sheen in the firelight, looking like ivory carvings. You imagine the taste of them ground into a thick paste with a little garlic and oil, the traditional Touraine soup that will warm your bones on a winter afternoon. These sensory anticipations are the small lights that guide a farmhouse life through the turning of the year. The fire has settled into a landscape of glowing embers, a miniature world of volcanic red and ashen grey. You nudge a stray shell closer to the heat with your boot, watching as it catches fire and curls into a black ribbon of smoke. It is a tiny sacrifice to the gods of the hearth. You feel an immense, quiet joy in being the one awake to witness these small mysteries. The willow basket is finally empty once more, its bottom boards smooth and worn. You run your hand along the weaving, feeling the craftsmanship of the basket maker who lived 3 villages over. Everything here has a name and a face attached to it. You lean back, the tension of the day's other chores completely forgotten. The task is done, but the peace remains. You look at the heavy iron crane, the crémaillère, and feel a sense of kinship with the iron and the stone. They are the permanent residents here. You are merely the current life that animates the space. But what a life it is, to sit in the Dordogne surrounded by the fruits of the land, protected by walls that have stood since the Middle Ages, is to know true security. You take a final deep breath of the air. Smoke, nut meat, old wood, and the cooling night. The rhythm of the shells has stilled, but it continues to echo in the quiet chambers of your mind, a steady drumbeat of all is well. You stand up, your body feeling heavy and satisfied, and prepare to bank the fire for the night. As you spread the white ash over the red coals to preserve the heat until morning, you feel the profound responsibility of the keeper. The flame will survive, the walnuts are ready, and the farmhouse will sleep in peace. You turn away from the hearth, carrying the warmth of 1810 with you into your dreams, a silent witness to the enduring beauty of the valley and the simple sacred rhythm of the harvest. The midnight hour has descended upon the Dordogne, and the farmhouse has settled into a profound, almost reverent stillness. You remain in your chair by the hearth, the last of the walnuts processed, yet you find yourself unwilling to leave the dying glow of the embers. The silence is thick, broken only by the occasional settling of the stone walls as they contract in the cooling night air. You look at your hands, dark with the tannins of the walnut husks, and you feel a sense of connection to the very earth that produced them. In 1810, the marks of labor are not stains to be washed away with haste. They are badges of belonging, physical proof that you have touched the world and it has touched you back. The cantu feels like a cathedral tonight, a sacred space where the simple act of preparing for winter has been elevated to a ritual of devotion. You think of the oil mill again, the heavy stone wheels waiting for these kernels. You can almost feel the weight of the stone in your own limbs. The world outside is a vast, cold expanse of forest and river, but here, within the circle of the firelight, life is concentrated and intense. Every object in the kitchen, the copper ladles, the heavy oak table, the ceramic jars, seems to possess a soul of its own, a quiet life that only reveals itself in the deep hours of the night. You are the conductor of this silent orchestra, the one who keeps the rhythm of the harvest beating in the heart of the home. As you finally rise from the ladder-back chair, your movements are slow and deliberate, as if you're moving through honey. The warmth of the fire has made your muscles supple and your mind clear. You walk over to the window and push aside the heavy wool curtain just an inch. Outside the valley is a world of silver and shadow. The moon, a bright, cold coin in the sky, illuminates the mist as it clings to the riverbank. The walnut trees stand like frozen giants, their branches etched in charcoal against the pale light. You feel a sudden, sharp appreciation for the fragility of this piece. In 1810, survival is a delicate balance, a dance between human effort and the whims of nature. But tonight you have tilted the scales in your favor. The kernels in the bowl are your currency, your hedge against the coming frost. You let the curtain fall back into place, sealing the room once more. The kitchen is now a dark velvet cave, with only the pulsing red eye of the hearth to guide you. You move toward the larder, your footsteps silent on the flagstones. You place the final bowl of meat alongside the others, a neat row of promises kept. The air in the larder is cold, smelling of stone and damp earth, a reminder of the world that waits outside. You close the door softly, the latch clicking with a finality that marks the end of the day's work. You are ready now. The rhythm of the night has prepared you for the rest that follows. You make your way back to the center of the kitchen, standing for a moment in the fading heat of the hearth. You look at the empty willow basket and the bucket full of shells, and you realize that you have participated in something much larger than yourself. This is the story of the Dordogne, a story of stone, wood, water, and the hands that work them. You feel a sense of profound humility. You are a small part of a long lineage of gatherers and shellers, a single heartbeat in the life of a valley that has seen empires rise and fall while the walnuts continue to ripen. As you turn to the staircase, the candle in your hand casting a long flickering shadow behind you, you feel a deep, abiding peace. The harvest is gathered, the walnuts are shelled, the fire is banked. The year 1810, with all its distant wars and changing borders, has been reduced to this: the warmth of a stone hearth, the smell of wood smoke, and the quiet satisfaction of a task well done. You climb the stairs, each step a rhythmic echo of the shells falling into the bucket. By the time you reach your room and settle into the feather bed, the world has fallen away entirely. There is only the breath of the farmhouse, the silver moonlight on the floor, and the deep, restorative sleep of the harvest. You have done your part, the valley is at rest, all is well in the heart of the home. The deep stillness of the farmhouse bedroom is a sanctuary within a sanctuary. As you lie there, the rhythmic thud of the walnut shells falling into the bucket continues to play in the theatre of your mind, a soothing, repetitive loop that lulls you deeper into a state of grace. You reflect on the sheer weight of the history surrounding you. In 1810, the walls of this house are not just dividers of space, they are containers of collective memory. Every crack in the plaster, every knot in the chestnut beams overhead, has witnessed the same autumn cycles. You feel a profound sense of continuity. The walnuts you cracked tonight are the descendants of trees that fed your great-grandparents, and the kernels you saved will nourish the children who will eventually take your place by the hearth. This is the true wealth of the Dordogne, not gold or titles, but the reliable return of the harvest and the steady warmth of the stone. You think of the river, the dark and ancient Dordogne, flowing tirelessly a few miles away. It carries the cold of the Massif Central down toward the sea, a relentless force of nature that serves as the valley's backbone. But here, under the heavy quilts, the world is motionless and warm. The air in the room is silent, yet it feels full, laden with the scent of dried lavender and the faint, lingering sweetness of the roasting chestnuts that were the reward for your labor. You are suspended in a moment of perfect equilibrium, where the fatigue of the body is perfectly matched by the peace of the soul. In the fluid world of your dreams, the farmhouse begins to glow with an inner light, as if the very stones have become translucent. You see the walnuts not as mere food, but as small wooden globes containing the wisdom of the seasons. You see the sap rising in the spring, the heavy green leaves of summer catching the fierce sun, and the slow, deliberate drying of the autumn. The act of shelling becomes a cosmic dance, a way of unlocking the secrets of time itself. You are moving through the walnut groves of your youth, the air filled with the golden haze of late October. Every tree is an old friend, their branches reaching down to offer their bounty. There is no struggle in this harvest, only a joyful cooperation between the land and the people. You find yourself back in the kitchen, but it is filled with all the people you have ever loved, all sitting in a great circle around the cantu, their hands moving in unison. The sound of the shells cracking is like a rhythmic clapping, a celebration of life's persistence. In this dream state, the year 1810 is a golden age of simplicity and connection. You realize that the peace you felt tonight is not a fleeting emotion, but a fundamental truth of your existence. You are part of the earth's rhythm, a steady pulse that cannot be broken by the storms of the outside world. The shadows of the kitchen are no longer dark. They are made of velvet and starlight, wrapping around you in a protective embrace that transcends the physical world. The transition from deep sleep toward the first light of another day is a slow, gentle ascent. You are aware of the world returning, the first faint chirping of a cold bird in the eaves, the distant muffled sound of the barn door creaking open. But you linger in the warmth, cherishing the last echoes of the night's stillness. The harvest is done, yet its influence remains in the way you feel grounded and secure. You think of the empty willow basket and the full ceramic bowls, and you feel a quiet surge of confidence. You have met the demands of the season with patience and grace. The Dordogne Valley is waking up, the mist beginning to lift from the river to reveal the limestone cliffs and the dormant groves. Soon you will rise and wash your face in the cool water of the basin, the scent of wood smoke still clinging to your skin as a reminder of your vigil. You will descend the stairs to find the fire rebuilt and the kitchen alive with the promise of breakfast. But for these final quiet heartbeats, you are the keeper of the night's peace. The rhythm of the walnut shells has become a part of your internal architecture, a steady, grounding beat that will carry you through the challenges of the winter ahead. You are a child of 1810, a tenant of the farmhouse, and a witness to the eternal beauty of a simple life well lived. The sun is touching the edge of the shutters, a bright promise of the day to come, but the heart of the home remains where you left it, in the warmth of the stone and the memory of the harvest. The dawn has finally broken the seal of the horizon, sending a pale, watery gold light to wash over the limestone facade of the farmhouse. You lie in the quiet of your room watching the dust motes swirl in a column of morning sun that has found its way through a knot in the oak shutter. This light is different from the amber glow of the fire. It is crisp, honest, and carries the weight of the day's new responsibilities. Yet, the tranquility you cultivated during the long hours of shelling walnuts remains anchored in your chest. You think of the cantu downstairs, the great hearth that is now being awakened by the first stirrings of the household. The ashes of last night's fire will be swept aside to make room for fresh kindling, but the warmth that seeped into the stones while you worked will linger for hours. You realize that your labor was not just about the food produced, but about the preservation of the home's spirit. In 1810, the survival of a family depends on these quiet, repetitive acts of preparation. The walnut oil, the roasted chestnuts, the dried herbs, they are the bricks and mortar of a life well lived. You feel a sense of profound readiness. The fatigue that weighed on your limbs at midnight has been replaced by a clean, sharp vitality. The rhythm of the shells has cleared the fog of the previous week's harvest toil, leaving you as polished and ready as the cracking stone itself. As you finally throw back the heavy wool quilts, the cool air of the bedroom greets you like a splash of spring water. You dress in your sturdy linen shirt and wool trousers, clothes that smell of the outdoors and the clean, dry scent of the cedar chest. Every movement is deliberate, a continuation of the steady pace you set for yourself by the fire. You walk to the window and swing open the shutters, letting the full breath of the Dordogne Valley into the room. The mist is swirling around the base of the walnut trees, making them look as though they are floating on a silver sea. The air is cold enough to see your breath, a reminder that the window of autumn is closing and the door to winter is standing ajar. You feel no fear of the cold. The pantry is full, the hearth is warm, and you have spent the night in a prayer of gratitude that has strengthened your soul. You look down at the courtyard, seeing the frost-covered stones and the empty baskets waiting to be stacked. The year 1810 is a difficult time for many, a time of uncertainty and change. But here, in the curve of the valley, the ancient laws of the land provide a certainty that nothing can shake. You are a participant in a story that began long before you were born and will continue long after you are gone. This realization brings a deep, settling peace. Descending the staircase, the sounds of the kitchen grow louder, the rhythmic clack of wooden spoons against ceramic, the hiss of water hitting a hot stone, and the low murmur of morning greetings. When you step onto the flagstones of the kitchen floor, you find the room transformed by the morning light. The copper pans are gleaming like burnished shields on the walls, and the large oak table is set with bowls of hot porridge. You look toward your corner by the hearth. It is empty now, but the presence of your work is everywhere. You see the bowl of walnut kernels sitting prominently on the sideboard, a testament to your endurance. You take your place at the table, the steam from the porridge rising to warm your face. As you eat, you listen to the sounds of the farm awakening, the distant lowing of cattle, the sharpening of a blade, the crunch of shells on the path outside. The rhythm of the walnut shells has become the underlying beat of your day, a steady internal metronome that keeps you calm amidst the bustle. You know that tonight, when the sun sets and the wind begins to moan in the chimney once more, you will return to your chair, you will reach into the basket, feel the rough texture of the shell, and begin the cycle again. For in the Dordogne of 1810, the work of the hands is the peace of the heart. The harvest is a blessing, the fire is a friend, and the simple act of shelling walnuts is a sanctuary that never fails. You are home and all is well. The morning meal passes with a quiet dignity, the steam from the bowls of oats and cream rising to join the lingering wood smoke near the rafters. You find yourself watching the light move across the kitchen, noticing how it illuminates the tiny scratches and dents in the flagstone floor, each one a mark of history, a footprint of those who came before. In 1810 there is no separation between the work of the day and the life of the spirit. As you finish your porridge, you feel the strength returning to your arms, a slow-burning energy derived from the very land you tend. You look over at the walnut kernels, their pale shapes reminding you of the intricate puzzles you solved one by one in the dark. They are no longer just seeds, they are a currency of survival and a symbol of patience. The rhythm of the shells falling into the bucket has left an imprint on your mind, a cadence of productivity that makes the coming tasks of the day seem manageable, even graceful. You stand up and walk to the larder, placing your hand on the cool stone wall. This house with its thick limestone bones has sheltered your family through droughts and floods, through the rise of kings and the march of armies. It is a silent witness to the endurance of the human heart. You feel a sudden, deep surge of affection for the rough textures of the farmhouse, the coarse linen of your sleeves, the dry warmth of the hearth, the cold weight of the iron ladle. These are the things that ground you in a world of constant flux. You are ready to step out into the crisp air of the valley, carrying the stillness of the night as a shield against the noise of the world. Stepping out through the heavy oak back door, the transition is immediate and exhilarating. The morning air is sharp, tasting of frost and decaying leaves, a bracing contrast to the mellow warmth of the kitchen. You walk toward the walnut grove, your boots crunching on the shells you scattered earlier on the path. The sound is a reminder of the night's meditation. The grove is silent, the trees standing like ancient statues in the thinning mist. Their branches are bare now, stripped of their fruit, yet they possess a quiet power, a promise of renewal that lies dormant within their bark. You find a sense of companionship in the trees. They have done their work for the year, and now they prepare for the long sleep of winter, just as you have prepared the stores of the farmhouse. You look up at the sky, a vast dome of pale sapphire, and feel the immense scale of the Dordogne Valley. It is a world of slow movements, the slow flow of the river, the slow growth of the timber, the slow turning of the seasons. In 1810 there is no rushing the inevitable. You spend the morning tending to the livestock, the rhythmic sound of the pitchfork and the low, steady breathing of the animals providing a new layer to the symphony of the farm. Your hands move with the same precision they used at the hearth, guided by the memory of the walnut's resistance and the shell's surrender. Every action is a building block in the wall of security you are constructing for the months ahead. As the midday sun reaches its zenith, casting short, sharp shadows on the frosted ground, you return to the farmhouse for a brief respite. The kitchen is now the hub of the day's activity, the smell of roasting salt pork and stewing cabbage filling the air. You take a moment to sit in your chair by the cantu, even though the fire is now just a bed of glowing coals intended for cooking. The stone of the hearth is still warm against your back, a lingering embrace from the night before. You close your eyes and for a second, the sound of the busy kitchen fades, replaced by the ghost of the hollow thud in the bucket. It is a sound that brings an instant sense of calm, a mental anchor that prevents the day's chores from becoming overwhelming. You realize that the farmhouse is not just a place of labor, it is a place of psychological restoration. The thick walls don't just keep out the cold, they hold in the peace. You think of the community of the valley, of the other farmhouses tucked into the limestone folds, each with someone sitting by a hearth, shelling walnuts, roasting chestnuts, and weaving the same fabric of gratitude. You are part of a vast invisible network of endurance. This thought brings a smile to your face as you open your eyes and rejoin the movement of the household. The day will continue, the evening will return, and once again, the basket will be full. The cycle of the Dordogne is a circle of grace, and you are privileged to be its keeper. You stand up, feeling the solid floor beneath your feet, and step back into the light, ready to finish what the night began. The sun begins to dip toward the limestone ridges, painting the Dordogne in shades of amber and violet, signaling the return of the quiet hours. You find yourself finishing the last of the outdoor tasks, the cooling air acting as a gentle nudge back toward the shelter of the home. The harvest of walnuts is nearly processed, but there is always more to be done in the farmhouse of 1810. As you walk back toward the house, you see the first plume of smoke rising from the chimney, a white flag of peace against the darkening sky. Inside, the rhythm is already re-establishing itself. The heavy door closes behind you, shutting out the biting wind and the vast cooling valley. You move toward the cantu, the familiar scent of wood smoke and roasting chestnuts acting as an immediate sedative for the day's fatigue. You reach for the willow basket, feeling the weight of the next batch of nuts. The first crack of the evening resonates through the stone kitchen, a clear, sharp note that marks the beginning of your nightly prayer. This is the beauty of your life. The repetition is not a cage, but a sanctuary. Every shell you break is a moment of mindfulness. Every kernel saved is a victory for the future. You feel the deep, grounding presence of the farmhouse around you, its thick walls soaking up the flickering orange light of the new fire. You are safe, you are home. The rhythm of the walnut shells falling into the wooden bucket will guide you through the night and into the dreams of the past. A steady, hollow thud that says all is well. The story of the harvest continues, timeless and true, in the heart of the Dordogne Valley. The evening has settled fully now, a thick blanket of indigo draped over the valley, and the kitchen has returned to its state of amber-hued intimacy. You sit in your accustomed place, the ladder-back chair feeling like an extension of your own spine. The rhythm of the work has resumed with a natural, unforced grace. Reach, crack, drop, reach, crack, drop. The sound of the shells hitting the bucket has changed slightly. As the layer of wooden fragments grows deeper, the thud has become a softer, more muffled hush, like the sound of a footstep on dry leaves. You think of the year 1810 not as a sequence of grand events, but as a collection of these small, tactile moments. The world outside may be preoccupied with the movement of grand armies, but within these 4-foot-thick walls, the movement of a single walnut from basket to bowl is the most significant event of the hour. You feel the heat of the oak logs radiating against your knees, a dry, penetrating warmth that seems to dissolve the remnants of the day's chill. The smell of the roasting chestnuts is even more potent tonight, a sweet, starchy perfume that fills the lungs and slows the heart. You look at the cantu and realize that this stone hearth has been the silent witness to every struggle and triumph of your family. It has held the soup that fed the hungry, the fire that warmed the newborn and the light that guided the elders. You are part of a living history, a thread in a tapestry that is still being woven. As you work, your mind drifts to the walnut oil mill once more. You imagine the heavy grinding stones, the cool dampness of the millhouse, and the golden liquid beginning to flow. That oil will be the lifeblood of your kitchen for the next 12 months. It will saute the wild porcini mushrooms gathered from the forest floor. It will enrich the dense, dark rye bread that sustains the men in the fields. There is a profound sense of interconnectedness in this realization. The nut you hold in your hand right now is a vital link in the chain of your family's health and happiness. You treat it with a quiet reverence, ensuring that not a single piece of the precious meat is wasted. The shadows on the whitewashed walls are longer tonight, dancing in a complex, shifting choreography dictated by the flickering flames. You see the shapes of the hanging herbs, the rosemary and the sage, and they look like the silhouettes of old friends gathered for a quiet conversation. The silence of the farmhouse is not empty. It is a rich, textured silence, filled with the presence of those who sat here before you. You feel their guidance in the way your hands move, a muscle memory passed down through the bloodline. In 1810, you are never truly alone. You are surrounded by the legacy of those who understood that a life lived in harmony with the land is a life of true abundance. The wind outside gives a sudden sharp whistle through the keyhole of the back door, a reminder of the wild, untamed world that begins just beyond the threshold. But inside, the sanctuary remains unbroken. You reach for a particularly large walnut, its shell dark and seasoned. It yields with a satisfyingly loud crack, revealing a kernel that is perfectly shaped, a miniature ivory brain. You pause for a moment to admire its complexity before placing it in the ceramic bowl. The pile of meat is growing steadily, a testament to your focus and your patience. You realize that this time by the fire is your meditation. It is where you process the events of the day, where you sort through your thoughts just as you sort the shells from the kernels. The rhythm of the task has a way of smoothing out the rough edges of your mind, leaving you as calm and still as the deep waters of the Dordogne at midnight. You think of the winter ahead, the snow that will soon blanket the valley, and you feel no anxiety. You have prepared. You have worked with the seasons, not against them. The warmth of the hearth, the security of the walls, and the bounty of the harvest are your armor. As you reach for the next nut, you feel a deep, marrow-deep gratitude for this simple life. The world of 1810 is a world of hard work and humble rewards, but tonight, sitting in the glow of the fire, it feels like the most luxurious life imaginable. The story of the farmhouse is written in these quiet hours, and you are proud to be the one holding the pen. The shadows cast by the copper pots on the far wall seem to stretch and yawn, reaching toward the center of the room as the fire settles into a steady rhythmic glow. You find yourself staring into the heart of the embers, where the wood has transformed into a glowing lattice of translucent red and shimmering gold. In the year 1810, the fire is not just a source of heat. It is a living entity, a silent companion that demands respect and offers protection. You reach into the basket, your fingers knowing the difference between a thick-shelled nut and a fragile one before you even look. The rhythm has become so automatic that you feel as though you are observing your own hands from a distance. The hollow thud in the bucket is now a deep, resonant sound, like the beating of a drum under water. You think of the limestone plateau above the valley, where the wind is currently scouring the dry grass and the shepherd huts stand empty. Up there the world is harsh and unforgiving, but down here, in the cradle of the farmhouse, the air is thick with the scent of stability. You are grateful for the depth of the valley, for the way it holds the warmth and shields the groves. Every walnut you process is a tribute to the geography of this place. You realize that the farmhouse is not just built on the land, but of the land. The stones under your feet were born in the same river that waters the trees, and the wood in your chair was once a branch reaching for the same sun. This unity brings a sense of peace that is absolute and unwavering. As the fire consumes another log of seasoned ash, a sudden burst of sparks flies upward, reminding you of the fleeting nature of the moment. Yet within this kitchen, the moment feels stretched, elongated into something eternal. You think of the oil that will be pressed, how it will be kept in heavy stoneware jars in the darkest corner of the cellar. That oil will carry the memory of this evening, the heat of the hearth, the sound of the wind, and the patient movement of your hands into the middle of the coldest winter. In 1810, we preserve more than just food. We preserve the essence of the season. You pick up a walnut that has a small bit of the green outer husk still clinging to it, now dried and blackened. It smells of the earth and the rain, a sharp tannic scent that brings back the memory of the harvest morning. You scrape it away with your thumbnail before placing the nut on the stone. Crack. The sound is a small punctuation mark in the long silent sentence of the night. You feel a sense of profound stewardship over these small treasures. To the outside world, they are just nuts. To you, they are the manifestation of a year's worth of weather and toil. You are the final arbiter of their journey. The silence of the house above you is a comfort, a weight of sleep that confirms the safety of the household. You are the watcher, the one who stays awake to ensure that the transition from harvest to storehouse is completed with care. The night has reached its deepest point, that hour when the line between memory and reality becomes thin and porous. You find yourself thinking of the stories told by the elders of the great frost of 1709, of the years when the walnuts failed and the valley went hungry. Those stories are the shadows that give depth to the current light, because you know the possibility of scarcity. The current abundance feels like a miracle. You reach for the final handful of nuts in the bottom of the basket, their rough surfaces cool against your warm palms. The thud as the last shells fall into the bucket is a sound of profound closure. You lean back, letting your hands rest on the arms of the chair, and simply breathe. The kitchen is a sanctuary of sensory details, the ticking of the cherrywood clock, the smell of the roasting chestnuts, the fading orange light on the whitewashed walls. You have moved through the evening with a singular focus, and in return the evening has granted you a clarity of spirit. The year 1810, with all its complexities, feels far away. Here, in the heart of the Dordogne, life is measured by the bucket and the bowl, by the fire and the frost. You feel a deep, settling satisfaction, a knowledge that you have done what was required of you. The walnuts are ready, the oil is promised, and the farmhouse is at peace. You watch the last flickers of the flame dance across the hearthstone, a silent valediction to a day well spent. The rhythm of the harvest is the rhythm of your soul, and tonight that rhythm is one of perfect, quiet gratitude. The silence that follows the completion of the basket is profound, a heavy and comfortable weight that fills the kitchen like the rising tide of the river. You sit motionless for a time, watching the way the dying light of the fire reflects off the empty willow basket, its woven shadow casting long, intricate ribs across the flagstones. In the stillness of 1810, you are acutely aware of the pulse of the farmhouse. It is in the slow cooling of the stone, the soft settling of the roof tiles, and the rhythmic sighing of the wind in the great chimney. You reach out and touch the ceramic bowl, now heavy and brimming with the pale ivory meat of the walnuts. This is the physical manifestation of your patience, a concentrated store of energy that will flavor the winter to come. You think of the bread that will be baked on the morrow, the way the crust will crackle and the scent of the nut oil will bloom in the heat of the oven. These are the small, essential victories of a life lived close to the earth. There is no waste in this room, even the silence is used to mend the spirit. You feel a deep sense of alignment with the world outside the thick walls. The trees are resting, the river is flowing, and you have finished your task. The world is in its proper order. You take a final look at the hearth, where the embers are now a delicate lace of white ash and glowing red, and you feel a surge of quiet joy. This is the heart of the home, and tonight you have kept its rhythm. As you prepare to leave the kitchen, you find yourself performing a slow, silent ritual of closing. You move the bucket of shells to the corner near the back door, their dry, woody scent a lingering ghost of the evening's work. You place the bowl of kernels on the high shelf, safe from the reach of curious farm cats. Every movement is fluid and peaceful, a continuation of the meditative state you entered hours ago. The year 1810 has been a year of many stories, but this, the quiet shelling of walnuts in a stone kitchen, is the one that matters most to your soul. It is the story of endurance, of the simple beauty found in the repetitive and the mundane. You pick up the small candle, lighting it from a stray spark in the hearth, and watch as the flame stabilizes, casting a warm, protective glow around you. The kitchen seems to withdraw into the shadows as you walk away, the copper pans and oak beams fading into a soft, velvety darkness. You feel a sense of profound stewardship as you ascend the stairs, the cool air of the upper floor a refreshing touch against your skin. The farmhouse is a vessel, and tonight it is full of peace. You are not just a tenant here, you are a part of the stone and the wood, a participant in the long, slow breath of the Dordogne. Entering your sleeping chamber, the moonlight is a silver flood across the floor, drawing sharp lines of light and shadow. You set the candle on the bedside table and sit for a moment, listening to the deep, resonant quiet of the valley. The harvest is truly over, the labor of the day and night folded away like linen in a press. You feel a weightless quality in your mind, a clarity born from the rhythmic thud of the shells. In the world of 1810, sleep is not just a necessity, it is a reward, a deep immersion into the restorative darkness of the countryside. You climb into the bed, the heavy wool blankets providing a comforting pressure that grounds you. As you close your eyes, the image of the fire returns to you, the orange light, the scent of wood smoke and the steady movement of your hands. You are drifting now, the boundaries of the room dissolving into a dream of the walnut groves where the trees stand tall under a canopy of stars. The rhythm of the harvest remains with you, a steady internal heartbeat that promises another morning, another fire, and the continued grace of a life lived in harmony with the land. You are home, you are safe, and the night is your sanctuary. The long story of the Dordogne continues in your breath, and as the house settles around you, you find the deep, dreamless peace you have earned. The transition into the deepest reaches of the night is a slow descent into a silence that feels almost liquid. In the farmhouse of 1810, the midnight hour is not a void but a presence, a heavy, comforting layer of time that blankets the stone walls and the sleeping inhabitants. You find yourself lying perfectly still, your heartbeat slowing to match the tectonic rhythm of the house. The memory of the evening's work has become a ghostly sensation in your palms. You can still feel the phantom pressure of the walnut seam and the sharp, clean snap of the shell. This is the residue of a task well performed, a physical echo that lingers long after the tools have been put away. You think of the valley outside, where the owls are currently moving like silent shadows through the walnut groves. The trees, now stripped of their fruit, stand in communal repose, their roots deep in the limestone soil, drinking the subterranean waters of the Dordogne. There is a profound symmetry in this. While you rest within the stone, the grove rests within the earth. In this era, the connection between the human soul and the natural world is not a concept to be studied, but a reality to be lived. You are the steward of the seed, the keeper of the oil, and the protector of the hearth. As a distant fox barks in the woods, a sharp and lonely sound that carries for miles in the crisp air, you feel a surge of primal security. The thick shutters are bolted, the fire is banked, and the harvest is secured. You are held in the cradle of the past, protected by the wisdom of those who built these walls to endure for centuries. The dreams that visit you now are textured and rich, painted in the colors of autumn and the scent of wood smoke. You dream of the river Dordogne, but in your dream the water is not liquid. It is a flowing stream of golden walnut oil, shimmering under a sun that never sets. You are walking along its banks, and the stones beneath your feet are not pebbles, but perfectly smooth walnut shells. This dream landscape is a testament to the importance of the work you do. It represents the abundance that flows from patience and the beauty that resides in the simple. You see the faces of the village elders, their skin wrinkled and brown like the very nuts you shell, their eyes bright with the knowledge of 100 seasons. They nod to you in the dream, a silent acknowledgement of your place in the lineage. You understand that in 1810, every individual is a vital link in an unbroken chain of survival. The thud of the shells in your dream becomes a rhythmic chanting, a song of the earth that celebrates the closing of the year. You feel a sense of immense expansion, as if your spirit is stretching out to encompass the entire valley, from the high limestone cliffs to the dark, fertile loam of the riverbanks. The farmhouse is the center of this world, a lighthouse of warmth in a landscape of cooling earth. You are floating in a sea of contentment, a state of being where there is no future and no past, only the eternal present of the harvest's grace. As the pre-dawn light begins to gather in the east, a faint and ghostly grey, you stir in the warmth of your blankets. The air in the room is cold, a sharp contrast to the nest you have created for yourself, but it is a clean, invigorating cold. You are in that delicate state between sleep and wakefulness, where the lessons of the night are integrated into the strength of the day. You realize that the peace you feel is not an accident. It is the result of the rhythm you established at the hearth. By focusing on the simple act of cracking a shell, you have cracked open a space of stillness within yourself. The farmhouse is beginning to breathe again. You hear the soft, muffled sound of the first log being placed on the embers downstairs, a sound that signals the rebirth of the day's fire. Soon the kitchen will be filled with the sounds of the morning, the clatter of the iron skillet, the whistling of the kettle, the heavy footsteps on the stairs. But you hold on to this final moment of solitude, this last fragment of the night sanctuary. You are a child of 1810, a person defined by the land and the seasons, and you carry the weight of the harvest with a light heart. The walnut shells are scattered, the oil is promised, and the story of the Dordogne continues in your every breath. You are ready to rise, to wash in the cold water, and to step back into the world of the living, for you have been nourished by the silence and the stone. The day is a gift, and you are its grateful recipient. The first true light of day begins to filter through the slats of the shutters, casting a series of parallel lines across the floorboards that look like the golden strings of a silent harp. You lie still, watching the room emerge from the shadows, noticing how the familiar shapes of your wooden wardrobe and the heavy ceramic basin regain their solid reality. In the stillness of 1810, the morning does not arrive with a crash, but with a gradual, dignified unfolding. You feel the cool air on your face and realize that the frost outside must be thick, silvering the landscape and turning the remaining walnut leaves into fragile glass. This transition from the deep, dream-filled night to the crisp reality of the morning is a sacred passage. You carry with you the grounding rhythm of the previous night's labor. Your hands, though resting, still feel the phantom weight of the cracking stone. This internal pulse is a secret strength, a reservoir of calm that you will draw upon as the house begins to bustle. You think of the kitchen below, where the first thin veil of blue smoke is already rising from the chimney, signaling to the valley that the farmhouse is awake and ready. There is a profound sense of duty in this, a commitment to the continuity of the flame and the nourishment of the family. You are a sentinel of the seasons, and as you prepare to leave the warmth of your bed, you do so with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their place in the grand design of the Dordogne. Descending the wooden stairs, each step gives a familiar, low-pitched creak, a sound that has welcomed the morning for generations. The air grows warmer as you approach the ground floor, carrying the intoxicating scent of toasted rye and the sharp, resinous tang of fresh pine kindling. When you step into the kitchen, the sight is one of timeless industry. The cantu is alive, the flames licking the underside of the heavy iron pot with a soft, persistent hiss. You see the bowls of walnut kernels from last night, now joined by a tray of freshly baked bread that glows with a honeyed crust. In 1810, the transformation of raw harvest into daily sustenance is the most beautiful alchemy known to man. You walk to the larder and touch the surface of the walnut meat once more. It is cool and firm, a concentrated essence of the grove's strength. You feel a deep physical satisfaction in seeing the results of your late-night vigil. The work of the hands is the most honest prayer, and the bounty before you is the answer. As the sun climbs higher, hitting the copper pans and turning them into miniature suns on the walls, you feel a surge of vitality. The fatigue of the night has been completely transmuted into a steady, quiet power. You are ready to face the chores of the day, from the mending of the stone walls to the tending of the winter garden, because you are anchored by the peace of the hearth. As the household gathers, the kitchen becomes a symphony of small, purposeful sounds, the scraping of chairs, the pouring of fresh milk, the low murmur of plans being made for the upcoming oil pressing at the mill. You listen to these sounds with a new appreciation, realizing that they are the musical notes of a life well lived. The walnut harvest has provided more than just food, it has provided a reason for the community to draw closer, to share the warmth of the fire and the weight of the work. You find yourself looking out the window toward the limestone cliffs that rim the valley. They are ancient and unmoving, a reminder that while our lives are fleeting, the values we cultivate, patience, gratitude, and care for the land, are as enduring as the stone itself. In 1810, you are not just surviving, you are participating in a masterpiece of human endurance. You take a piece of the warm bread, spread it with a bit of the freshly pressed oil, and taste the very soul of the Dordogne. It is rich, earthy, and full of the sun's memory. As you step out the door to begin the day's outdoor work, the cold air hits you with a refreshing bite, but the warmth in your center remains unshakable. The rhythm of the walnut shells has become the rhythm of your life, a steady, grounding beat that will lead you through the winter and into the promise of a distant spring. You are a part of the farmhouse, a part of the valley, and a part of the eternal story of the harvest. All is well, and the journey continues. The sun has climbed high enough to begin the slow evaporation of the valley's silver frost, turning the roof tiles of the barn into a patchwork of steaming terracotta. You find yourself standing in the middle of the courtyard, the air crisp enough to sting your nostrils with every breath, yet you are comfortably wrapped in the lingering heat of the kitchen fire. In 1810, the transitions of the day are governed by the position of the sun and the needs of the earth, rather than the ticking of a metal clock. You look back at the farmhouse, its massive stone walls glowing with a pale, creamy light that seems to absorb the chill of the morning. You think of the walnut kernels resting in the dark larder, and a sense of profound completion washes over you. The night's work has paved the way for the day's peace. As you walk toward the storage shed to gather your tools for the afternoon's fence mending, the crunch of your boots on the gravel feels like a continuation of the rhythmic shelling. Every sound in this valley has a purpose, a place in the grand dialogue of survival. You feel the weight of the hammer in your hand, its wooden handle worn smooth by years of use, and you realize that your body has become a finely tuned instrument of the farm's will. There is no resentment in this labor. There is only the quiet satisfaction of being a necessary part of a beautiful, functioning whole. You are as vital to this landscape as the river itself, a steady force moving through the seasons with a quiet and determined grace. By mid-afternoon, the light has turned a deep, liquid amber, casting shadows so long they seem to reach across the entire world. You pause in your work to look toward the horizon, where the limestone ridges of the Dordogne are etched against a sky that has faded to a delicate pale violet. The silence of the afternoon is heavy and rich, broken only by the distant, rhythmic clop-clop of a horse and cart on the valley road. You think of the journey those walnuts will soon take to the mill, the way they will be transformed into the oil that is the pride of your region. In 1810, excellence is not measured by speed, but by the integrity of the process. You take a moment to sit on a low stone wall, feeling the cold of the rock seep through your trousers, a grounding reminder of the earth's raw power. Your mind drifts back to the hearth, to the cantu that will soon be calling you back for the evening vigil. The cycle is relentless, yet it is also deeply comforting. There is a great peace in knowing exactly where you belong and what is expected of you. You are a child of the Dordogne, a keeper of the ancient traditions, and as the first chill of the approaching evening begins to settle in the hollows of the land, you feel a surge of anticipation. The fire will be rebuilt, the basket will be replenished, and the sanctuary of the stone will once again wrap you in its protective embrace. You are not just living a life, you are tending a flame that has burned for generations. As the first star appears in the deepening blue of the sky, a solitary bright diamond hanging over the tallest walnut tree, you make your way back toward the farmhouse. The smell of wood smoke is stronger now, a homing beacon that guides your steps through the gathering gloom. Inside, the kitchen is already bathed in the soft, flickering light of the evening fire, the copper pans catching the glow and reflecting it back like molten gold. You move to your chair, the wood familiar and supportive, and reach for the willow basket. The first crack of the new evening resonates through the room, a sound of homecoming and continuity. You realize that the 5,000 words of your day, the thoughts, the movements, the breaths have all led back to this single point of stillness. The rhythm of the walnut shells is the heartbeat of your existence, a steady, hollow thud that speaks of security, of gratitude, and of the enduring beauty of the simple life. You are back in the sanctuary, a participant in the eternal harvest. And as the fire begins to roar in the chimney, you feel the weight of the world drop away. There is only the fire, the stone, the walnut, and the peace of 1810. You continue your work, a silent prayer of gratitude in the heart of the Dordogne, knowing that as long as the hearth is warm, the soul is fed. The night has returned, and with it the deep restorative grace of the home. The darkness outside the kitchen window is now absolute, a thick velvet curtain that isolates the farmhouse from the rest of the world inside. The fire has reached its prime, the oak logs glowing with an intensity that seems to vibrate in the air. You sit in your ladder-back chair, the wood having warmed to your body temperature, and the rhythm of the work has become a seamless extension of your breathing. Reach, crack, drop, the bucket is slowly filling again, the shells clinking against one another with a dry, hollow resonance. In the year 1810, time is not measured by the frantic pace of the cities, but by the gradual accumulation of these small, hard-won kernels. You look at the pile of walnut meat and see the potential for 100 winter meals, soups enriched by its creaminess, salads brightened by its crunch, and the legendary walnut bread of the Dordogne that smells like the very earth itself. You feel a deep, grounding connection to the generations of people who have sat in this exact spot performing this exact task. Their hands, though long gone, guided yours through the muscle memory of the valley. This is the secret of the stone farmhouse. It does not just shelter the living, it preserves the essence of everyone who has ever sought refuge within its walls. You are never truly alone when you are at the hearth. As the evening progresses, the wind picks up, rattling the heavy iron latch on the door and sending a low, mournful howl down the chimney. The fire responds by dancing higher, its blue and orange tongues licking the soot-stained stones of the cantu. You find yourself thinking about the resilience of the walnut tree, how it stands bare and skeletal against the winter gales, holding its strength deep within its roots until the first thaw of spring. You realize that you are doing the same, by gathering here by the warmth of the fire and processing the fruits of the harvest. You are concentrating your own internal strength. You are building a reservoir of warmth and nourishment that will carry the household through the darkest months of the year. The silence of the room is textured by the small sounds of the task, the snap of the shell, the soft thud of the meat, the rustle of your wool sleeves against the chair arms. These sounds are a form of protection, a sonic barrier against the vastness of the night. You feel a profound sense of stewardship, a realization that your quiet labor is the foundation upon which the family's comfort is built. In 1810, every hand must contribute, and tonight, your contribution is this rhythmic, meditative prayer of the harvest. The hour grows late, and a sense of profound clarity settles over you, as if the repetitive motion has scrubbed away the last vestiges of the day's fatigue. You look at the empty spaces in the willow basket and feel a quiet pride. The harvest is transitioning from a wild bounty into a structured domestic resource. The fire has settled into a deep, pulsing red, the kind of heat that seems to reach into your very bones. You lean back for a moment, letting your hands rest, and simply observe the play of light on the ceiling beams. Those beams were hand-hewn 2 centuries ago, and they still bear the marks of the adze, a reminder that everything in this house was created with intent and effort. You feel a deep, marrow-deep peace. The rhythm of the walnut shells falling into the bucket is the pulse of the Dordogne itself, steady, patient, and eternal. As you reach for the final handful of nuts, you realize that you are not just preparing for winter, you are honoring the cycle of life. The story of the farmhouse is written in these quiet hours, and you are proud to be the one who carries it forward. The night is a sanctuary, the fire is a friend, and the simple act of shelling walnuts is a ritual of belonging that transcends time. You are home, and in the heart of the valley that is all that matters. The firelight begins to flicker with a rhythmic intensity, mirroring the steady pace of your hands as the night deepens further into the small hours of morning. The atmosphere in the kitchen has become thick and heavy, saturated with the scent of roasted earth and the dry, ancient dust of the walnut shells. You feel a strange sense of timelessness, as if the year 1810 is not a point on a calendar, but a permanent state of the soul. The shadows of the rafters overhead seem to shift like the giant hands of a clock, marking the passage of hours that have no name. You pick up a walnut that is unusually smooth, its surface polished by the movement within the basket, and you hesitate for a moment before the stone descends. There is a weight to this silence that feels physical, a pressure that pushes against the walls from the outside, emphasizing the fragility and the strength of the hearth's glow. You are the guardian of this light, the one who ensures that the darkness remains at bay. Every kernel you extract is a small victory, a tiny amber gem of sustenance won from the stubborn grip of the shell. You think of the cold limestone cellars where these will be stored, and you take comfort in the knowledge that your work tonight will be the foundation of 1,000 future comforts. As the logs in the cantu shift and settle, sending a final, brilliant cascade of sparks upward into the black throat of the chimney, you feel the cooling of the room's edges. The warmth is now concentrated solely around your chair and the dying embers. The rhythmic thud of the shells has become a heartbeat for the farmhouse, a sound that pulses through the floorboards and into the very foundation of the building. You realize that you have reached a state of complete unity with your surroundings. There is no longer a distinction between your fingers, the stone and the walnut. There is only the act itself, a fluid and perpetual motion that transcends fatigue. You think of the spring to come, when the trees will once again bud with the promise of a new harvest, and you feel the immense circularity of life in the Dordogne. Nothing is ever lost, it merely waits for its season to return. The willow basket is now almost entirely empty, its woven bottom visible once more in the fading light. You feel a pang of bittersweet closure. The task that defined your night is coming to an end, leaving you with a bowl full of ivory treasure and a mind cleared of all but the most essential truths. The final nut of the evening is cracked with a sound that seems to echo longer than all the others, a sharp, singular note that signals the end of the vigil. You hold the last kernel in your hand for a moment, feeling its intricate, brain-like ridges, before placing it atop the mountain of meat in the ceramic bowl. The work is done. You stand up slowly, your joints stiff but your spirit light, and look at the harvest you have transformed. The bucket of shells is heavy, a testament to your endurance, and the bowl of meat is a promise of survival. You move toward the window one last time and see the first faint hint of grey on the eastern horizon, the hour of the wolf giving way to the promise of a new dawn. You have bridged the gap between yesterday and tomorrow with the rhythm of your hands. The farmhouse remains silent, a stone fortress of peace, as you prepare to bank the fire and find your own rest. The story of 1810 continues, written in the smoke of the chimney and the oil of the nut, a tale of persistence and grace in the heart of the valley. You turn away from the hearth, the warmth of the harvest still glowing in your veins, and step into the quiet, awaiting the sun. The dawn of 1810 does not arrive with a shout, but with a slow silvery infusion of light that gradually defines the sharp edges of the stone sink and the heavy oak lintels. You stand in the center of the kitchen, your body feeling the pleasant ache of a night spent in purposeful labor. The air has grown cold since the fire began to retreat into ash, yet the core of the house remains stubborn in its retained warmth. You look at the large ceramic bowl now overflowing with the pale convoluted kernels of the walnuts, and you feel a profound sense of wealth that no coin could ever replicate. This is the gold of the Dordogne, edible, life-giving, and forged through the partnership of sun, soil, and human hand. You pick up a stray shell fragment from the floor, rubbing its rough texture between your thumb and forefinger, realizing that even the refuse of this work has value. It will be used to spark the fires of the coming week. The house is still asleep, and in this final moment of solitude, you feel as though you are standing on the threshold of time itself. You are the bridge between the harvest of the past and the sustenance of the future. The silence is no longer a void, but a vessel filled with the satisfaction of a job completed with reverence. As you finally move toward the stairs, your footsteps light on the cold flagstones. You glance back at the cantu. The white ash covers the sleeping coals like a winter blanket, preserving the spark that will ignite the morning's porridge fire. This continuity is the heartbeat of the farmhouse. You think of the oil mill that waits for these nuts, the heavy stone wheels that will soon press out the essence of the grove. The thought of that rich, nutty fragrance filling the mill house brings a smile to your weary face. In 1810, the work of one night ripple outward, affecting the flavor of every meal and the comfort of every evening for a year to come. You are part of the great, slow machinery of the valley. Climbing the stairs, you feel the transition from the world of fire and stone to the world of shadows and dreams. The wooden banister is smooth under your palm, worn by a century of hands seeking the same rest you now pursue. You enter your room, where the frost has etched delicate fern-like patterns onto the glass of the window. The valley outside is a study in monochromatic blue and grey, the walnut trees standing like silent sentinels over the sleeping earth. You are home, and you are part of the land's deep, rhythmic breath. Sinking into the depths of your feather mattress, the coolness of the sheets is a brief shock that quickly gives way to a cocoon of warmth. Your eyes close, and the rhythmic crack of the shells begins to echo softly in your mind, a soothing metronome that guides you towards sleep. You are no longer just an individual. You are a participant in the eternal cycle of the Dordogne. The year 1810, with all its distant political tremors and changing maps, fades into insignificance against the reality of the harvest. What matters is the grain in the barn, the wood in the shed, and the walnuts in the larder. You feel a deep, marrow-deep security, a knowledge that you have fulfilled your contract with the seasons. As the first bird begins to twitter in the eaves, signaling the true arrival of the morning, you drift into a dreamless, restorative slumber. The story of the farmhouse is written in the silence of its stones and the labor of its people, and tonight you have added a vital chapter. The rhythm of the harvest is the rhythm of life itself, and in the heart of the valley, under the watchful gaze of the limestone cliffs, all is peaceful, all is prepared, and all is well. The slumber that takes you is thick and heavy like the dark loam of the riverbanks after a heavy rain. In your dreams, the year 1810 becomes a tapestry of moving shadows and golden light, where the sound of the cracking shells transforms into a language of its own, a staccato poetry of survival. You dream of the great pressing day at the mill, the scent of the first run of oil so potent it feels like you're inhaling the very spirit of the earth. The community gathered there, the laughter muffled by the roar of the water wheel, and the shared pride in the bounty of the valley. You see the faces of your neighbors, etched with the same lines of labor and the same quiet resilience that you feel in your own bones. The harvest is not a solitary victory, it is the glue that binds the Dordogne together. Even in sleep, your fingers twitch with the memory of the task, a phantom reach for a walnut that is no longer there. The farmhouse around you remains a silent guardian, its thick walls absorbing the first rays of the sun and shielding your rest with the weight of 200 years of history. You are a part of the house's long memory now, a participant in the dream of the land. When you finally wake, the sun is high and the farmhouse is alive with the mid-morning bustle. The sharp, cold clarity of the earlier dawn has mellowed into a bright, crisp day. You sit up feeling the deep rejuvenation that only comes after a night of honest, rhythmic work. The stiffness in your joints is a pleasant reminder of the shells you broke and the kernels you saved. You dress quickly, your mind already moving toward the next phase of the cycle, the cleaning of the hearth, the sorting of the wood, and the preparation for the mill. As you descend the stairs, the smell of the kitchen reaches up to greet you, no longer the smoky scent of the night vigil, but the fresh, brisk aroma of a house in motion. You see the bowl of walnuts on the sideboard, catching the full force of the sunlight, and they look like small, precious sculptures of ivory and tan. They are the evidence of your patience, the fruit of your stillness. In 1810, there is no shortcut to this feeling of accomplishment. It must be earned one shell at a time in the quiet company of the fire. The day ahead is full of the typical chores of a late autumn farm, but you carry the peace of the night with you like a hidden treasure. Every task you perform, whether it is hauling water from the well or stacking the seasoned oak for the winter, is colored by the meditative state you achieved by the cantu. You realize that the rhythm of the walnut shells was not just a means to an end, but a lesson in how to live. It taught you that the most significant things are often the smallest and the most repetitive. As you look out over the valley, the Dordogne River reflecting the brilliant blue of the sky, you feel a profound sense of gratitude. You are a child of 1810, a tenant of the stone, and a witness to the enduring grace of the seasons. The story of the harvest will continue year after year, and as long as there are walnuts to be cracked and fires to be banked, the heart of the home will remain warm and secure. You step out into the courtyard, the air filling your lungs with the promise of the coming winter, and you smile, knowing that you're ready for whatever the valley brings. The cycle is complete, and yet it is only just beginning. The evening fire catches with a cheerful crackle, the dry pine kindling giving way to the steady, enduring heat of oak logs as the orange glow begins to reclaim the kitchen from the encroaching twilight. You settle into your chair with a sigh of homecoming. The willow basket is replenished, its weight a familiar comfort against your knees. You pick up the first walnut of the night, noting how the firelight dances on its rugged surface, highlighting every ridge and valley of the shell. Crack. The sound is sharper tonight, perhaps because the air outside has turned even colder, tightening the world in a frost-bound grip. You feel the immense stillness of 1810 pressing against the window panes, a vast silent wilderness that makes the warmth of the hearth feel like a miracle. Your hands move with a newfound fluidity, the rhythm of the previous nights having carved a deep channel in your consciousness. You are no longer thinking about the movement, you are the movement. The thud of the shells in the bucket is the only clock you need, marking time in a way that feels honest and connected to the pulse of the earth. You are the guardian of the harvest, and as the house settles into its nightly hush, you feel a profound sense of belonging to this stone, this fire, and this ancient cycle. The hours drift by like smoke rising from the chimney, unnoticed and ethereal. You find yourself reflecting on the nature of the walnut itself, a hard, protective exterior guarding a complex, nourishing heart. It occurs to you that the farmhouse is much the same. To the world of 1810, it is a rugged limestone fortress, but to those within, it is a source of softness and life. You reach into the basket, your fingers brushing against the rough wood, and feel a deep gratitude for the simplicity of your purpose. There is a singular beauty in having a task that requires only your presence and your patience. The world outside may be a place of complicated allegiances and distant wars, but here, the only victory that matters is the clean extraction of a kernel. You watch the shadows of your own hands on the wall, large and rhythmic, looking like the wings of a great bird in flight. This work has become a form of silent communication with the past. You are speaking the language of your ancestors, a dialect of snap and rustle that needs no translation. The pile of ivory meat in the bowl grows steadily, a silent testament to the fact that peace is not found, but built one shell at a time through the long, quiet hours of the night. As the fire burns down to a bed of radiant rubies, you find yourself at the bottom of the basket once more. The final few nuts are scattered like lost coins in the woven dark. You gather them up, feeling the coldness of the willow against your palms. The last crack of the night is a resonant, final note that seems to hang in the air long after the shell has fallen. You lean back, closing your eyes, and let the warmth of the cantu soak into your weary limbs. The year 1810 is a year of quiet endurance, and you have played your part with honor. You think of the oil that will be pressed, the bread that will be shared, and the stories that will be told around this very hearth when the winter winds howl at their fiercest. You are ready for the sleep that is coming, a deep and well-earned rest that will carry you into the tomorrow of the valley. The rhythm of the walnut shells has become the architecture of your peace, a steady grounding structure that holds you safe within the flow of time. You stand, blow out the small candle, and let the fading embers guide you toward the stairs. The harvest is stored, the fire is banked, and in the heart of the Dordogne, the story of the home continues its eternal silent breath. The passage of time in the farmhouse of 1810 is measured not by the ticking of clocks, but by the gradual cooling of the air and the deepening of the shadows in the corners of the kitchen. As you climb the stairs toward your sleeping chamber, the wooden steps feel like the keys of a silent instrument, each groan and creak a familiar note in the house's nightly symphony. You reach the upper landing and pause, looking out through the small, thick-paned window that faces the valley. The world outside is bathed in a ghostly silver light, the frost on the fields reflecting the glow of a waning moon. The walnut trees look like sketches in charcoal against a pale parchment sky. You think of the kernels you left in the ceramic bowl downstairs. They are the distilled essence of this landscape, a concentrated form of the sun's energy stored within a rugged shell. There is a profound sense of continuity in this thought. You are part of a lineage that has learned to extract life from the hardness of the earth, to find sweetness within the stone. Your hands, still smelling faintly of the bitter green tannin of the husks, are the tools of a tradition that refuses to be forgotten. You feel the immense weight of the valley's history pressing gently against the house, a protective layer of memory that keeps the modern world at a distance. Inside your room, the silence is so profound it seems to have a texture of its own, like the heavy wool of the blankets waiting on your bed. You move with a quiet efficiency, stripping away the layers of the day's labor and sinking into the coolness of the linen. As your head hits the pillow, the rhythm of the shelling returns to you once more, but now it is slower, more melodic, a lullaby of the harvest. You imagine the oil mill again, but this time you see the faces of the children who will dip their bread into the golden liquid, their eyes wide with the simple joy of a full belly. In 1810, the work of an individual is the survival of the tribe. You realize that your fatigue is a form of wealth, a currency spent to purchase the security of those you love. The darkness of the room is not empty. It is filled with the presence of the farmhouse itself, its limestone walls breathing in the cold night air and exhaling the warmth of the day's fires. You are held in a stone embrace, a sanctuary that has weathered revolutions and wars, standing firm while the rest of the world shifts and changes. You feel a deep, settling peace, a surrender to the natural order of things. The year 1810 is a year of quiet strength, and you are its silent witness. As the boundary between wakefulness and sleep begins to dissolve, you find yourself drifting through a landscape of golden light and ancient wood. You are walking through the walnut grove, but the trees are heavy with fruit that glows like lanterns. Every time a nut falls to the ground, it makes the sound of a bell, a clear, resonant chime that echoes across the Dordogne. This dream vision is the harvest in its most spiritual form, a celebration of the earth's generosity and the human spirit's resilience. You feel a sense of lightness, as if the physical weight of the baskets and the stones has been lifted, leaving only the pure joy of the cycle. The rhythm of the shells becomes a heartbeat, steady and true, pulsing through the ground beneath your feet. You are the tree, you are the river, and you are the stone. In this state of grace, you understand that there is no end to the story, only a constant turning of the wheel. The morning will bring new tasks, new fires, and new rhythms, but the core of the sanctuary will remain unchanged. You sink deeper into the dream, the sound of the falling walnuts fading into a gentle whisper of wind in the leaves. The farmhouse is at rest, the harvest is blessed, and in the heart of the valley, the night remains a perfect, unbroken circle of peace. The morning of the following day arrives with a heavy grey fog that has crawled up from the Dordogne River, swallowing the base of the limestone cliffs and turning the walnut grove into a forest of ghosts. You wake before the rest of the household, the internal clock of 1810 pulling you from your blankets with a gentle but insistent nudge. There is a specific quietude to a fog-bound morning. It feels as though the world has been wrapped in unspun wool, dampening sound and slowing the very passage of time. You descend the stairs, your feet finding the familiar worn hollows in the wood, and enter the kitchen where the smell of last night's walnut shells still lingers as a dry, earthy perfume. The cantu is a dark cavern of grey ash, but when you stir it with the iron poker, a single defiant eye of red coal winks back at you. This is the spark of continuity. You feed it small shavings of kindling, watching the smoke curl and twist before the first flame leaps up to claim the wood. As you wait for the kettle to boil, you look at the canvas bags of walnut meat sitting by the door. They are ready for the mill. You feel a sense of solemnity, as if you are preparing to send a part of yourself out into the world to be transformed. By the time the fog begins to lift, revealing a pale, watery sun, The heavy cart is loaded. The journey to the oil mill is a slow procession through the winding lanes of the valley, the iron-rimmed wheels of the cart grinding against the flint and limestone of the road. In 1810, travel is a tactile experience. You feel every vibration of the earth through the soles of your boots as you walk beside the ox. The damp air clings to your wool coat, and the scent of decaying leaves and wet stone is thick in your lungs. You pass other farmsteads where the smoke is rising straight and true into the still air, a signal of shared rhythms and communal survival. There is a profound sense of solidarity in this landscape. Everyone you encounter is bound by the same seasonal laws, the same dependence on the harvest, and the same reverence for the oil. When the sound of the rushing mill stream finally reaches your ears, a low rhythmic thrumming that vibrates in the chest, you feel a surge of anticipation. The transformation is about to begin. The raw labor of your nights by the fire is moving toward its ultimate purpose, ready to be pressed into the golden nectar that will sustain the spirit of the valley. Inside the mill, the atmosphere is a dizzying mix of damp coolness and the overwhelming sweet aroma of toasted nuts. The massive granite stones move with a ponderous, crushing grace, driven by the relentless power of the water wheel outside. You watch as your bags of walnut meat are emptied into the hopper, the ivory kernels disappearing into the machinery to be pulverized into a rich, dark paste. Then comes the pressing, the slow, immense application of force that coaxes the oil from the fiber. You watch the first trickle of liquid gold as it escapes the press, a shimmering, translucent stream that catches the dim light of the millhouse windows. You catch a drop on your finger and taste it. It is warm, intense, and carries the flavor of the Dordogne summer and the autumn sun. This is the moment where the circle closes. The months of tending the trees, the weeks of harvest, and the long, quiet nights of shelling have all led to this single perfect drop. You feel a deep, soul-level satisfaction. The oil will be poured into stoneware jars, sealed with wax, and taken back to the sanctuary of the farmhouse you have provided. The rhythm of the harvest has borne its fruit, and as you begin the journey home under the darkening sky, you feel the weight of the jars in the cart as a blessing, a promise that the light of the hearth will never truly go out. The morning of the following day arrives with a heavy grey fog that has crawled up from the Dordogne River, swallowing the base of the limestone cliffs and turning the walnut grove into a forest of ghosts. You wake before the rest of the household, the internal clock of 1810 pulling you from your blankets with a gentle but insistent nudge. There is a specific quietude to a fog-bound morning. It feels as though the world has been wrapped in unspun wool, dampening sound and slowing the very passage of time. You descend the stairs, your feet finding the familiar worn hollows in the wood, and enter the kitchen where the smell of last night's walnut shells still lingers as a dry, earthy perfume. The cantu is a dark cavern of grey ash, but when you stir it with the iron poker, a single defiant eye of red coal winks back at you. This is the spark of continuity. You feed it small shavings of kindling, watching the smoke curl and twist before the first flame leaps up to claim the wood. As you wait for the kettle to boil, you look at the canvas bags of walnut meat sitting by the door. They are ready for the mill. You feel a sense of solemnity, as if you're preparing to send a part of yourself out into the world to be transformed. By the time the fog begins to lift, revealing a pale, watery sun, the heavy cart is loaded. The journey to the oil mill is a slow procession through the winding lanes of the valley, the iron-rimmed wheels of the cart grinding against the flint and limestone of the road. In 1810, travel is a tactile experience. You feel every vibration of the earth through the soles of your boots as you walk beside the ox. The damp air clings to your wool coat, and the scent of decaying leaves and wet stone is thick in your lungs. You pass other farmsteads where the smoke is rising straight and true into the still air, a signal of shared rhythms and communal survival. There is a profound sense of solidarity in this landscape. Everyone you encounter is bound by the same seasonal laws, the same dependence on the harvest, and the same reverence for the oil. When the sound of the rushing mill stream finally reaches your ears, a low, rhythmic thrumming that vibrates in the chest, you feel a surge of anticipation. The transformation is about to begin. The raw labor of your nights by the fire is moving toward its ultimate purpose, ready to be pressed into the golden nectar that will sustain the spirit of the valley. Inside the mill, the atmosphere is a dizzying mix of damp coolness and the overwhelming sweet aroma of toasted nuts. The massive granite stones move with a ponderous, crushing grace, driven by the relentless power of the water wheel outside. You watch as your bags of walnut meat are emptied into the hopper, the ivory kernels disappearing into the machinery to be pulverized into a rich, dark paste. Then comes the pressing, the slow, immense application of force that coaxes the oil from the fiber. You watch the first trickle of liquid gold as it escapes the press, a shimmering, translucent stream that catches the dim light of the millhouse windows. You catch a drop on your finger and taste it. It is warm, intense, and carries the flavor of the Dordogne summer and the autumn sun. This is the moment where the circle closes, the months of tending the trees, the weeks of harvest, and the long, quiet nights of shelling have all led to this single, perfect drop. You feel a deep, soul-level satisfaction. The oil will be poured into stoneware jars, sealed with wax, and taken back to the sanctuary of the farmhouse. You have provided. The rhythm of the harvest has borne its fruit, and as you begin the journey home under the darkening sky, you feel the weight of the jars in the cart as a blessing, a promise that the light of the hearth will never truly go out. The return journey from the mill is a slow, triumphal march conducted in the gathering indigo of a November twilight. The cart, now laden with heavy stoneware jars filled with liquid gold, feels more grounded, its wheels biting deeper into the muddy ruts of the lane. In 1810, the weight of a successful pressing is a physical comfort, a burden that lightens the heart even as it strains the axle. You walk beside the ox, your hand resting on the flank of the beast, feeling the rhythmic muscle movement that mirrors the steady pace of your own life. The air is sharper now, smelling of frost and the distant wood smoke of the village, but the scent of the fresh oil clings to your clothes like a fragrant ghost. You think of the cellar at home, that cool subterranean sanctuary where these jars will rest beside the barrels of wine and the hanging hams. Each jar represents hundreds of thousands of those cracks you performed by the fire, a tangible consolidation of time and effort. You feel a profound sense of closure as the silhouette of the farmhouse appears against the darkening hills, its windows glowing with a welcoming, amber light. You are bringing the essence of the year back to the stone that protects you. As you unload the final jar into the darkness of the cellar, you realize the cycle is complete. The labor of the hands has become the nourishment of the soul, and as the heavy cellar door clicks shut, the story of the harvest finds its eternal rest in the silence of the stone.
Sleepy History Tales is created for relaxation, entertainment, and sleep purposes.
The stories shared on this channel are inspired by historical events, daily life, and real periods in history, but they may be simplified, adapted, or narrated in a calming way to enhance the listening experience. This content is not intended to be a precise academic or educational source. While we aim to stay generally accurate, some details may be altered for storytelling flow and relaxation.
Please do not rely on this channel as a primary source for historical research or study.
By listening, you acknowledge that this content is designed to help you unwind, relax, and fall asleep.
Thank you for your understanding and support.